Guys, welcome back to Magic TV. It's 9 o'clock. It's a Tuesday. It's time for a Talk Magic. And I'm here with probably, and I always, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you've probably heard me talk about this guy before. I like to think of him as the best kept secret in Magic. And that is Owen Strickland. Yeah, I'm talking to you, mate. Hey, Owen, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you? Nice to see you again.
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on this. I know you rarely do interviews, so it's great to have you on here. And I know there's going to be
that many people down. You're my first, literally. only because I say turn people down makes me sound like a diva. Because literally most of the people watching will be thinking, "Oh, we know." I just think people aren't thinking what I've got to say. That's why.
They will. And I want to tell everyone watching this why I wanted you on the channel very early on. And the reason is Owen is probably the busiest working magician in the UK. Like, while everybody, and always has been, and you're probably the only magician that I know that's still going out and working regularly at weddings while the whole COVID thing's been going on over the last 7 months. You've been going out regularly working at weddings while everyone else has been sitting at home crying into the cup of tea. And you are a really busy guy, and you have dominated the wedding market. And the reason that people haven't heard you is you don't release magic. You're not, you don't, although you are involved in magic, and we'll talk about that. You're really involved in a lot of stuff to do with magic, as we can see with the circle certificate behind you. You are involved in a lot of stuff to do with the magic community. But a lot of people won't know about you, but that's because you're too busy going out and doing gigs. Would you agree with that?
100%. I think a lot of magicians have I might be talking out of turn, but I don't care, as you know. I think a lot of magicians want to be accepted by the magic community and want it to be a known name. I don't care, honestly. I don't hang around with many magicians. The ones that I do are very good friends, and we'll talk about them. But I've got no ambition to be known in the magic community. I just want to go out and work and then come home, go to the pub, go to bed. That's it. So I'm not creative, so I can't imagine I'll ever bring out a magic trick. I'd love to. I just haven't got that creative bone. I know you've got it, and people will talk about have got it in abundance. I just haven't got it. So I might as well accept that and get on and try and work.
But what you have got is the ability to, I mean, I don't want to call you a marketing genius, but basically you must be, but in order to get the level of gigs that you do at the price that you charge, because let's be honest, you don't go out for peanuts. It's easy to get 1 million gigs in your diary if you're charging 20 quid a pop, but you in a sliding scale of the prices of magicians in the UK, you are towards the top end. And I've heard you on the phone when you're speaking to people, you've turned gigs down. You'd be like, no, somebody said, oh, I'm cheaper than, I've got someone who'll do it cheaper. And you're like, well, just book them then, because I'm not dropping my price.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't come quickly. And when I started, and we'll talk about my first gig in a bit, it was a funny story. My first gig was 40 quid. And if I quoted him 30, it wasn't 40, I quoted him 30. And he said, I'll give you 50, because I think he thought 30 quid. And I mean, a long time ago, 30 quid and a curry. So over time, you put your prices up, and you have to be able to justify why you're putting your prices up. I'm sure we'll talk about that. So you get to that stage. But yeah, I think there is more expensive magicians than me. But I'm certainly not at the bottom end. I mean, I'm happy to talk about prices. I publish my prices, and we'll probably talk about why that as well. So I'm sort of middle to higher end, probably. But yeah, it's having the confidence to do that and getting to the level where you can do that. And I think that's important, and grow organically. And I hate that word. And it's something you used to always say on the Wizard product review, organically. There was a drinking game based around it, wasn't there? But you do have to grow organically. And as you do that, your prices will go up.
Awesome. Well, let's start at the very beginning. You got into magic kind of later on, didn't you? You're not your typical, I got a magic set when I was 5 years old, and I knew from that moment on I wanted to be a magician. That's not you, right?
Yeah. Do you know, I hated magic as a kid. I couldn't stand it. I used to have the usual, no offense to kids entertainers, and you're a brilliant one. My sister does it well now, but I couldn't stand, even as a kid, magic. Kids entertainers, I hated. The noise and all the stuff that they do very well. I'm not having to go at kids entertainers. They do an amazing job. I couldn't do it. But I hated magic as a kid. I was quite a shy kid, really. And then I always loved watching magic on the television. I was a massive Paul Daniels fan. Who wasn't? I could watch him now all day. I'd watched some of his YouTube stuff the other day. I'm probably one of the only few magicians that never had a Paul Daniels magic set as a kid. You know who the other one was?
Who?
Paul Daniels. Not my joke. I nicked that joke off someone. Sorry. So yeah, I used to love watching him, and then sort of as the 90s came along, I started watching more on magic. I loved on TV. Sorry, I loved the Simon Drake Secret Cabaret. That was brilliant. I used to be on a Wednesday night, Channel 4. Paul Zenon came along, and I was like, oh, this is brilliant. This is what I wanted. The leather jacket, the street magic. And Blaine came along and blew everyone away. And then Darren Brown came along, and I mean, who doesn't love Darren? I can literally watch him all day. Ended up on stage with him one of his shows, which was random. I just caught a frisbee, not because I'm a magician. I just caught the frisbee. And then, yeah, I was watching a lot of magic on TV, and then YouTube sort of came along, and I was watching a bit more. And then what actually got me into magic, thinking I could do it myself, I was on a course at work, a residential course down in Worcester. As you do on a residential course, you end up in the bar with the simple plan to get leathered. It was a Wednesday night, why not? And a kid said to me, "Do you want to see something cool?" And I was like, "Not really, mate. I just want to have a drink." And he showed me a couple of things. He showed me dynamic coins, which got my attention a little bit, but they do look a bit, to me, a little magic proppy. But then he showed me coin unique, and I'm like, okay, do that again, as people say. He had hopping halves. He then got the flaming wallet out, and then that was it. Then I'm like, I've got to get one of these. And at the time, it wasn't a magic shop in Worcester. It was like a juggling shop, but they sold some magic tricks. So I went and bought coin unique, flaming wallet, a D-light like thumb tip. And that's what started the interest. And then I started doing it in just people that know me. I even when I was working full time, I lived to go to the pub on a weekend. Don't drink at home. I'm going to sound like an alcoholic. I'm not, but I love going to the pub on a Friday and a Saturday night. remember those days. And I just started buying more and more stuff. And I tended to go for British coin stuff. So I had hopping halves. I had cigarette through coin, which kind of died when the smoking ban came in. And it kind of grew from there. But even then, never thought for a second I could do gigs. I didn't have that confidence in my ability. I think, in fairness, I had no ability then. They were pretty much self-working coin tricks. Then sort of, I don't know, 2010, 2011, started watching the Wizard product review. Was that about then that came out roughly?
Yeah, I'd say about it was before Ryland was born. So maybe 2009, 2010, something like that.
Yeah, around about then. World Magic Shop was in Birmingham, so just up the road, went there. Met Mark Lavelle. Mark Lavelle was very influential for me in the early days. We're still good friends now. Went in a few times, bought little bits. I mean, at this point, I'd never even picked up a pack of cards in my life. I didn't even play cards, but apart from Snap as a kid, couldn't even handle a pack of cards. So the first trick I think I bought from World Magic Shop was Stand Up Monty, which is an incredible trick. Don't do it anymore for some reason, but incredible trick. And Mark said to me the one day, "You should come to 3SM, which is the magic club in Cannock." And I was a bit, people that know me, I'm a very confident person. I'm not intimidated in any situation. And you know some of the ones I've been in that we can't talk about. But I went there thinking, oh God, this is going to be full of expert magicians, and I can do coin unique. But it was such a friendly club. And then after a year or two, maybe not even that, Mark got me to do a gig, and I got more and more stuff. And I by now learned how to do a false shuffle, false cuts, and I learned some lower end tricks. But Mark said, "You're good with people. Your magic needs some work," which I knew. But why don't you come to a gig with me? And I built myself up to it. And it was a gig of all places, the Hilton in Birmingham. So you get there, first ever gig. He was doing it. I didn't, John Meredith that Mark used to do a lot of work with.
Yeah. I don't see him around anymore, but yeah.
I think he's had a family and stuff. Good guy, but it was him and Mark, and there was some confusion about whether John could do it or not. And Mark said, "Well, I'll pay you to come." In the end, John could do it, and I built myself up that much. Just said, "Forget about the money. Can I come and do the gig? I want to do the gig." And what a baptism of fire that is. The first time you're doing it as a professional, and I use that word loosely because I wasn't. And then I did some gigs with Mark over the next year. I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and worked hard. And then I did some for you for Slightly Unusual.
Yes, you did, yeah.
Which was great, great getting the experience in. Then I started doing wedding fairs, and then that was when it kind of, if it did do that, that was the point that it really went up. And then I think the year Andy Murray won Wimbledon, Chris Congreve and Gary Jones did a workshop, which was it was a brilliant day. People who were thinking of making the transition from part-time, semi-pro, whatever phrase you want to use, and the phrases annoy me and the arguments about that annoy me, to becoming a full-time working pro. And it was such an amazing day, as you can imagine.
That day is legendary. There's so many people that now are professionals that went along that day.
Exactly. And that day was massive. And it wasn't about tricks. Yes, of course, with them too, there were some tricks involved and some giveaways, but it was about the business side, just the practicalities of being a working magician.
I find it hilarious. And I'm saying this because I interviewed Chris Congreve a few weeks ago. Yeah. And he'll openly say, when it comes to the business side of magic, he's terrible. And you're just saying the day was about the business side and it was amazing. But Chris on this very channel said, hey, I'm not that great on the business side of magic.
He doesn't push himself, which by his own admission. But yeah, and there was some, Tom Mullinger was on there. Who was on there? Grant Maiden was on there, who fried everyone with his sponge ball routine. But it was brilliant. I mean, it was things like pocket management, the importance of pocket management. That was the thing I took out of the day. Decide where you're going to put stuff early on and then don't move it ever. There's nothing worse. I won't say who did it on the day, but someone looked for their Sharpie when he was doing a trick for everyone there, which is quite intimidating. And you just think, right, I'm going to have two Sharpies and they're never going to move. And it was stuff like that. And the practicalities on the day, and such a good day. It was absolute gold. It wasn't a lot of money. And then that really helped. And then, yeah, so sort of I started doing weddings probably 2014 seriously. And it's just grown year on year on year on year.
And now, I mean, you're in a situation where obviously we've taken a bit of a hit recently with COVID and coronavirus and everything. But I know that, for the last couple of years, you've been in a situation where you're going into the next year with 60 or 70 high paying weddings in your calendar, which is amazing. It's a great situation to be in, knowing that there's that level of income in your, because one of the things about being a working pro that really scares people is, well, I now have to go from having a set wage that comes in every single month, whether I'm sick or whether I'm not sick or whatever, to being in a situation where I'm now ultimately responsible for my own level of earnings, and being able to get yourself into a situation where you've got that amount of money guaranteed coming in because it's in your diary. That must take the edge off.
It really does. And so, I mean, this year, as everyone knows, has been crazy. I originally had 75 weddings this year. That obviously fell by the wayside. The majority, thankfully, have moved to next year. So up until 2 weeks ago, I had 80-something weddings booked in for next year. I've lost about 10 of those now. I think with the last announcement by Boris, quite a few have given up on the idea of getting married completely, and they've just cancelled, which is a shame. But I've still got about 70 odd already for next year. All things being back to normal, obviously.
Well, there is, I don't want to turn this into a Corona Watch interview, but it does look like there's light at the end of the tunnel with everything that they're
talking about. The first time now, there genuinely is. When he made his last announcement, a lot of my April and May brides were quite, I say brides, we all know they make the decision. Quite a few of those were, and still might cancel, just to be sure. But I mean, I'm touching everything wood that I can. I think by June, July, I think we should be okay. So touch wood again. I'm not having any cancellations at the moment for June, July. I've had one from August, which is random. I've had one cancel for 2022, saying we're not going to be back to normal again. I'm like, right, okay, your glass is half full, isn't it? So yeah, hopefully next year will be fine. And we don't want to talk about Corona. We've talked about it all year, but yeah, I always aim for roughly 70, 80 weddings a year. I don't know why that number. I think it's just because the last few years, that's what it's been. And you never want to have less weddings than the year before, albeit as you put your prices up, if you have a slight dip in number, it's not an issue because you're earning more money.
Okay, well, I want to talk about the business side of magic, specifically the business side of wedding magic. But before I do, let me ask you a question, because I really want to touch on this. You had a very high profile job. I'm okay saying that you're in the police. I know we can't really talk about what you did, but you were a police. You were in the police for many, many years.
22 years, yeah. Retired last year. I say high profile. When I announced my, I can't talk about what happened, but I retired early. I'm not that old, obviously. Long story for another day. There might be a book coming out potentially, maybe not. There's this horrible thing called the Official Secrets Act, but apparently you can't breach it. But yeah, not many people knew I was a police. And when I announced it on Facebook, there's a lot of magicians messaging me going, "No way you were a cop," 'cause I don't act like a cop. But yeah, I did 22 years. That's probably all I can say about what I did.
That's fine. I don't really. I'm not going to ask you about what you did in the police, and that's fine. But here's the thing: my dad was a copper for 30 years, so I know that when you get to 30 years in the police, you're not set for the rest of your life, but you're in a very good situation. You get a very good pension.
Yeah, the pension. All right.
It must have been a very hard decision to go from having a wage that's a good, you were getting paid a lot of money, to go and do full-time magic, especially knowing that if you hung on for a few more years, you would end up with a pension that you could have for the rest of your life. So what made you, because this is a decision that a lot of people wrestle with. When am I going to turn pro? When is that tipping point? You've got that full-time job and you go out and you start doing gigs. And when you first start doing gigs, it's magic money, isn't it? You use it to buy more tricks and
play money. I mean,
play money, right?
I had some lovely holidays on magic money because it was bonus money. I had my wage. Yeah, and I did wrestle with it for a couple of years. I was at the level probably 3 or 4 years ago where I could afford to do it. But exactly what you just said, at the time, before my troubles at work started, it was a case of I can do it, but I wouldn't lose the pension, but I'd have been in 60 when I got the pension, as opposed to if I'd have hung on for a couple of years, I'd have had, albeit a reduced pension at 50, but still something that's livable on. There's no long and short answer because everyone's circumstances are going to be different. For me, it was a case of, have I got regular enough work through magic to be able to live? And for the last 3 years, that wasn't an issue. I earned more from magic than I did in the police, so that wasn't a problem. But it's the safety net of, if I leave the police 4 years ago, and I think the top back wage 4 years ago was 37, 38 grand, it's still a 38 grand drop. And that's a lot of money to drop overnight, and it would have been overnight. So I spoke to a couple of magicians over the years that want to leave their full-time job. But what you can't do, I won't talk about names, but what you can't do is say, next year, I'm going to become a full-time magician and just leave your job. Because unless you've got work or ways of getting that work, you're just going to have 3 or 4 months where you're not going to earn a penny. And I think we get bookings in a different way, me and you, but I get booked very early for weddings because I do wedding fairs. And I think that's probably why. I don't do much on Google. You do. Maybe Google are more late bookings. I don't know. I don't do it.
Yeah, well, I used to do a lot of wedding fairs, and I stopped when Ryland and Thea were born because I was going out working full time in the week. I was doing a lot of other gigs, and I was getting Sundays off, but I was having to commit every Sunday to doing wedding fairs, and I was never seeing my kids. So,
and they are hard work, wedding fairs. And for someone like me who enjoys a Saturday night, if I've got one off, I have to stop drinking at 10 o'clock because I'm going to be up at 8 to get, down to Warwickshire or Staffordshire, or whatever to stand there for 5 hours, having paid some of them a lot of money to do the same trick to everyone that passes. And they are hard work, but I see them as a necessary evil. I don't enjoy doing them at all. But I do want
to talk about wedding fairs. I do want to talk
about
your concept around it. But yeah, so with regards to you, so that's why you left. You had the work in place and you were like, right, okay.
Well, it was accelerated for me, and again, I can't go into details legally, although I haven't signed any non-disclosures. But there was a big issue, and so there was a payoff involved with me, which accelerated it all in any case. So I now do get a small pension, and I was lucky enough with some savings from magic, I paid my mortgage off. So I became mortgage free last year, and it all just finally just fell in place. So
Right.
I'm fortunate this year that, and the government, they've been great with employed people. Let's not get political about it, but self-employed people, a lot of them have fell through the gaps, and it's been hard. And it just shows, if I'd have just left last November without this package that I had, I didn't qualify for a penny this year off the government because I worked full time last year. Even though last year I must have paid probably £14,000-15,000 tax between the two, mostly from the police. I'd have not entitled to a penny. But on the business side, that's fair because I didn't pay a huge amount of tax on the business.
But you know what? You're one of the few people that hasn't, because I've spoken to you all through ever since March, through lockdown 1, lockdown 2, the bit in the middle. I've spoken to you, and you're one of the few magicians, full-time magicians, the few pros that hasn't been stressed about not getting work in. I've seen like big name magicians that are just sitting there like stressing all the time, worried about what's going on. You see a lot of magicians going out and delivering pizzas or doing deliveries. I honestly think that the big issue is when everything goes back to normal and magicians start going back to doing magic. I think we're going to have a shortage of delivery drivers overnight. Because I think that,
and fair play to them, because you've got to pay the bills, and when you're self-employed, you'll do anything to feed your family. I've got a lot of respect for the guys that have done that, and I get why when it first happened, I think there was a case of it'll be all over by the summer, and I was certainly like that. I was like, it's like getting the flu, isn't it? And then this year transpired the way it did, and fair play to the people that have I think, is it pivots the buzzword for doing it, but fair play to them, going and looked after the family by getting whatever they can. And I'm fortunate that my small pension has meant that it hasn't been an issue for me.
And it's nice knowing that you've got, and it's nice knowing you've got all that work in for next year.
It is nice. I'm just hoping next year's okay now. I'm now getting bookings for 22. I took one this week for 2023, which sounds like it's light years away, doesn't it? It's crazy.
But I think a lot of the people that were planning for 2022, they're probably thinking, well, I'm going to go 2023 instead. Yeah, I do think that people are pushing their plans back. Okay, so basically, to sum that up, for people that are wrestling with the decision of going full time, your attitude is,
get yourself in a position where you can. Don't be naive about it, would be my opinion. And it's just my opinion. Some people might say I'm wrong. That's fine. Everyone's got an opinion. I can only ever talk about what works for me. You've got to get in a position where are you regularly getting that income in, and if you're not ready to go full-time pro. Because don't think, if I was a year ago now and I didn't have the weddings I had for this year, January, February, March, which are quiet months, I am relatively busy, but let's be honest, they're quiet months. There's not a lot of money coming in, not a lot of money at all. Now, some people very cleverly in those months take higher deposits for weddings later in the year. That's a good idea, but it's not a huge amount of money you're gonna take. So you've got to be confident that you're gonna get those gigs. Where are you gonna get them from? I think there's a lot of magicians over the years that I've met who don't do anything proactive, and they look at the phone thinking that'll ring in a minute, it'll be a gig. It won't. You've got to go and do it.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that with you now, because one thing that you have done as a before you actually went full time, you were doing it while you were in the police. Yeah. You've leveled up your skills. You've learned marketing, you've learned video editing, you've learned networking. I saw you networking everywhere. You've kind of gone out and done it and put yourself in that position. And a lot of magicians don't. As you know, I'm a motivational speaker. I speak to business owners. And one of the things I say the problem with show business is there's two parts of that. There's show and there's business. And most magicians, they focus on the show and they spend no time focusing on the business. And it's that old joke, isn't it? What's the difference between a magician and a savings bond?
Cool.
Eventually, a savings bond will mature and make money.
Very true, yeah.
It's true, right?
You want to be, when you go up, a magician. You can't do both.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing. There's a lot of magicians that are, and I think a lot of the older school magicians, and I'll be honest here now, a lot of the guys that have been around for a long time, they rely, the guys that relied on the yellow pages,
Yeah.
You know, they've been working on word of mouth and stuff like that, which is fine. But I think that that's going to become less and less of an important thing moving forward, especially with COVID in place. And I think that now the magicians and the businesses that are doing well or are going to be doing well moving forward, they're going to be the magicians that have understood about modern marketing techniques and understood how to actually market yourself as a magician. And I think that, you know, that people are worried about, oh, is there still going to be work in 2021? Yes. Owen's here with 75 gigs in his calendar, booking gigs in for 2022 and 2023. There's going to be work coming in, absolutely 100% guaranteed.
Well, yeah.
But it's about knowing how to get it.
Yeah, I mean, you are the marketing guru. I mean, if there's no other magician that can market as good as you. I've not done a single marketing course. I've got no history in marketing. I've just learned over the years what's worked for me. And do you know what? I don't think, for me, it's not rocket science. It's get content on social media and get good content, get good reaction photos, reaction videos, and hammer social media. And that's what's worked for me. And when I do wedding fairs, part of my sort of patter, I hate that word, but I'll say to people, have a look on social media. Every wedding I do, you'll see on my social media. So Instagram's great because now it's a grid and people can scroll down that a lot quicker than maybe Facebook, and it's perhaps overtaking Facebook to a certain degree. So have a look at my Insta. There's probably 150 weddings on Insta from the last 2.5 years. Just and they can scroll down and everyone's got a reaction shot, a short video, whatever. And I say, look, I genuinely do that many weddings a year. Check me out, have a look. My website, there's over 1,000. I think there's 1,023. And the only reason I know that, I looked last night. There's 1,023 photos of me at weddings. Go and have a look. And then they're like, oh, he really does do that many weddings. He must be okay. So it's just about getting content out there for me. I had a saying. Now I'll be slightly hypocritical this year. I have dipped this year. I got not demotivated in March and April and May, but I was that busy dealing with people postponing to next year. I didn't really want to market much. I was more worried about particularly people who paid a deposit or had paid in full, which is rare, but some do. I wanted to get them resettled to next year before I'm marketing for next year. I didn't want clashes. But I've gone off a tangent now. But yeah, I had a saying, or have a saying, what have you done today to help you get a gig? And if you haven't done something today, all right, we're early. If you haven't done something today, any magician, if you haven't done anything today to help you get a gig, you won't get a gig today. So I almost daily, maybe not daily, but now certainly 3 or 4 times a week, will do something on social media that's a reaction shot and whatever, or it might be one of the wedding groups, a little show reel or whatever, you know, and I churn them out. I did learn real basic video editing just on iMovie. Nothing. I'm no good on Logic Pro. That's another level above. But iMovie's okay. And if people can afford to get a posh show reel, then go and do it. They look incredible. But if you're a bride and groom, I think, or a groom and groom, or a bride and bride, I think if you're watching a 10-second video on Instagram with a great reaction, I don't think it needs to be a Steven Spielberg level high effect type stuff. They're looking for effects, and if you can fill your social media with that, you're halfway there. I think, my opinion.
And on the subject of social media and social proof, one thing that you've done, which you haven't talked about, is you've specialised in weddings.
Yeah.
You see a lot of
you know what that is? Historically, when I started doing some of the quieter, lower end gigs, and I don't say that looking down my nose, it's just that was the fact. You know, I wasn't going out for huge amounts of money. I looked at my accounts last night from 2013, and it was 150 quid gigs, 200 quid gigs. My first wedding was 300 quid, which was in North Yorkshire. It was a friend of a friend, but I completely forgot what I was going to say. What we were talking about.
You specialise in weddings.
Yeah, and the reason was I thought, because my social life, I love my social life. My best friend owns nightclubs, so I was going there every Friday and Saturday. I thought, if I do weddings, I can go and do a Saturday afternoon and be in the pub for 6 o'clock. And that was the whole reason I started doing weddings. And then when they became regular for me, you do kind of specialise in that. And who doesn't want to do a wedding? You go there, everyone's immaculately dressed most of the time. Everyone's on their best behaviour most of the time. Everyone's in a good mood nearly all the time, and you're getting paid a load of money for being there. What's not to love about weddings? And you go to these beautiful venues around sort of Warwickshire, not many in the West Midlands, but there's some, Staffordshire, all higher end venues that I do now. You're there having a laugh with people. And I love that. It's not just about the magic for me. I like having a laugh with people. And I think that's why I booked. If I've got a skill, it's certainly not magic. It's people skills.
Yeah.
And I can talk to anyone about anything and have a laugh with them. And I'm not a comedy magician. I couldn't tell a joke, but I just make people laugh with ad-lib stuff. And that's for me the key. And that's why I ended up doing weddings. And then weddings became the thing.
Exactly. But I think that's part of your success, because the thing is, you see a lot of magicians going out and saying, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. And you're almost a jack of all trades. But if you're a bride, if you've got a show reel and you are here at a festival, and then there's a video of you at a corporate event, and then there's a video of you, a lot of brides and grooms will go, they'll look at that, and then they'll look at you, which is exclusively a video of you at weddings, and they're going to go, well, that's the guy we want.
Yeah.
And it's the reason why, when you talked about my companies, why I set up Non-Stop Kids and Slightly Unusual as two completely separate companies. It's because I didn't want somebody who's looking for a wedding magician to see a video of somebody doing stupid stuff in front of a bunch of kids.
Yeah,
and likewise in reverse.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it. But you've done exactly the same thing, but you've drilled it down even more. Your website and everything that you do screams wedding. Now, if you get a phone call saying, hey, will you come and do this corporate event? If the money's right, I'm sure you will. Yeah. But that's not your focus. Everything that you do is weddings. And I think that's really important.
It is. And I think as well, I do quite a bit of corporate, but not nearly as much as weddings. And if there's anything I want to improve, it's probably the corporate side. But I think with weddings, because I do so many fairs and meet them, and I think once I meet them and I've met them and do some magic, they're happy to book. I think corporate is perhaps where the internet comes in more. It's rare that I meet people and get corporate bookings from weddings, obviously, but my SEO is not wonderful. Yours is amazing. So you'll get a load of corporate inquiries through your website. I get some, but I don't get anywhere near what I do with weddings, because you're right, I do target weddings for that reason. And when I was working full time, I was lucky. I worked Monday to Friday. I had weekends off, and it was just a case of weddings are on a weekend, so it all kind of fitted at the time.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about wedding fairs, because you've alluded to them several times. Let's talk about wedding fairs. So here's somebody who wants to start getting more wedding bookings. Wedding fairs are a great place to start, because you can immediately expose yourself. That sounds terrible. You can immediately put yourself in front of a load of brides and grooms. If you're going to do it online, or you're going to do it with digital marketing, you've either got to pay for PPC ads, or you've got to spend a lot of time and effort working on your SEO. But you pay to go to a wedding fair, immediately you're there front and center. So I suppose the first question is, how do you pick the wedding fairs? Because there are some shit wedding fairs and there's some really good ones.
How do we know that?
Yeah. So how would you pick the wedding fair? What would you do?
Sometimes it's trial and error. You have to try them, especially when you're first doing them. I tried a lot of various companies before I was recommended by venues. It was just, where can you get in? There's not a huge amount of magicians that do wedding fairs in the Midlands. There's some, but compared to, say, photography, where every wedding fair there'll be 5 photographers, there's probably only normally 1 magician. So it's trial and error. I've tried most of the wedding fair companies in the Midlands. I now only use 2 because I know that they're going to get the footfall in, but the quality of people in. And sometimes people get bogged down with footfall. It's not always about footfall. It's about the quality of people that come in. And by that, as an example, you could do a wedding fair with 400 people. If they're not quality people, and by that I mean people who are A, engaged, B, genuinely looking to book, C, are going to be the right price point for you, because I don't really do any budget venues anymore, only because my prices, people aren't generally going to pay at a budget venue. There's a wedding fair I do at a venue in Warwickshire every February. It's not the busiest wedding fair in the world by any stretch. It probably has 30, 40 people. But those 30, 40 people are people who are booked at the venue in the next year for their wedding. So I'd rather do a wedding fair with those 40 people than 300 people who, you know, in January now, you might notice as much as when you do, or when you did wedding fairs, you say, oh, when you're getting married, oh, we haven't got a date yet. And it's not quite like that, because I'm still going to do something for them. I want them to remember me, but they're not going to book me today. The people that are walking up the aisle behind them might be getting married in this summer or next summer. That's who I want to spend the 5 minutes with. So there's no hard and fast rule. I think if people are looking at wedding fairs, I think there's one little cheat that you can do is have a look at the company. If they're any good, they will have photos of previous wedding fairs. And if they're busy, then you know they're going to be good. If there's no photos on there of their previous wedding fairs, generally ask yourself why that is. And if they haven't, and they're marketing to you, say, have you got any photos of your last wedding fair? If they haven't, and they're unwilling to show you, they're probably not going to be the best. Because, and I don't blame them. What a great business. If you can hire a hotel room, let's say, for, I don't know, £1,000 on a Sunday afternoon, and you have 100 wedding suppliers at £50, let's say, and it's usually more than that. What a good business. You're going to come away with £4,000. You don't need to make any. I mean, that's a monthly wage in one afternoon. The good ones will advertise it. Will have banners outside the venue. I think that's an important thing. Don't rely just on online advertising for fairs. If it's a busy venue on a main road, you want a banner out there so everyone that drives past, oh, there's a wedding fair. So trial and error. I mean, I've done some awful wedding fairs over the years, and particularly in the early days. I used to be cheeky and maybe message them on the Friday going, have you got any spaces? Don't need a table if that helps bring the cost down. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. And sometimes it works, but I stopped doing that because I think once you get established in the wedding world, I wouldn't want to appear to be cheap. I'm like, what's your wedding fair? There's the money, not a problem, because I know I'll do well from it. So it's choosing the ones. I now tend to do just venues' own wedding fairs. With the exception of the two companies, I won't mention them. I tend to do venues own because they've got that level of care. They want the quality bride and grooms to come in to look at their venue. So they tend to be the ones I do now. So I generally don't do wedding fairs if there's another magician. Not because I'm afraid of competition. I'm really not. I just think, why bother? There are some bride and grooms now that are worried about price and price alone, particularly if they're 3/4 of the way down booking their wedding. They're probably already overspent. Bride and grooms do. If it's going to come down to cost alone, I'm not your person. And as you said at the beginning, I turn a lot of weddings down now. People, so and so is charging that. I'll go and book them then. It's amazing when you say go and book them, how many actually come back and book you. So yeah, there's no easy answer for anyone. But you know, if you're thinking of going to go and do wedding fairs, and generally the main season is September, October, and then January, February, March. I don't do any in January now, only because everyone that gets engaged on either Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, they hit the wedding fairs in January. And literally, I've only got engaged. I haven't got a venue so they're not worried yet about a magician. So I've stopped doing them in January. Unless one of my venues is doing it, then I will, because people who are getting married there will come. But yeah, I don't do them in January. I do February and March, and I pretty much do every Sunday. But if you're thinking of doing them, if anyone's watching, then you know, January, February might see the beginnings one. Go and have a look at them. Go and have a look at them, because it's a very different way of performing at a wedding fair than it is at a gig. It's just totally different.
And I want to ask about that. But before I do, devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I've heard people say, oh, wedding fairs are saturated now. I mean, I haven't done them in many years since Ryland was born. So 8 years ago was the last time I really probably did a wedding fair. Yeah. But I hear people going, oh, wedding fairs are saturated. There's too many of them.
True. I think that's probably true. And that's why you've got to find the good ones. They work for me. Out of 70 odd weddings last year, I would say, I could find the exact number, but I'm not that geeky because I track where every booking comes from, and that's important. I would say at least 45 of those were probably directly from wedding fairs. So certainly way over half my work comes from wedding fairs. So they work for me. They might not work for everyone. But again, because I think if you're personable and you do a little bit of magic for people at wedding, explain not about the tricks, explain why you can make their day better. You can solve problems. It's something Lee Smith says a lot, and he's absolutely on the money. And he smashes the wedding market, and he's brilliant. Someone I look up to a lot. But yeah, you know, solve problems, why you should have me on your day, and we can talk about that as well. But it's very, very different to just doing tricks for them. Yes, I do a trick for them, but I talk more about what I can do for them on the day
Well,
in terms of care for their clients.
let's talk about your process. First of all, the look of the wedding fair stand. You can just chuck some flyers on the table and you're good, right?
Good. That's not what I do. I see some magicians that do that. For me, there's a phrase that I believe is true. You've got one chance to give someone a first impression. So I think your stand has to look good, personally. Now, when I started years ago, I had a very cheap pull-up banner, and there's nothing wrong with them. I had them for years, and we're still getting a lot of work from them. My first one had the stereotypical big picture of me, because I had no performance pictures en masse to put up there. I just didn't. Certainly not high quality ones that you need for the resolution to look good on big print. And I had some flyers. I had my business card. I had all that. But it's amazing how many people, when you want to start talking to them, actually don't look that much at your stand. They're going to talk to you, and you are the salesman. It sounds an obvious thing, but you're the person that's going to convince them to have you at their day. Yes, I've got flyers. Yeah, I've got a brochure. I mean, I've got stuff here, and I can show you some of the stuff. But I think the look of it has to look good. So nothing wrong. And if people are going to do their first wedding fair, there's absolutely nothing wrong. You can go on some sites and get the banner designed for you for not a lot of money. I think some of the companies now, I think print.com, you can actually design your own. They've got a drag and drop facility where you can put a logo in, you can put a photo in. It's important to have your details more at the top than the bottom. And the reason for that is if you've got a pull-up banner and you go behind a table, it's going to be behind a table. So up to waist height, it's going to be out of view. So have something at the top. Make sure it says magician. A mistake I made years ago, I was that convinced or concerned with having photo imagery on there, which is important for me, and we'll talk about that. A lot of people, because it didn't have magician in big letters, it was there but not in big letters, a lot of people just thought, oh, he's a photographer. And it's amazing with one banner, and I loved the banner and it did a lot of good for me, but amazing people say, oh no, we got a photographer. I'm not a photographer, I'm a magician. And that made me realize then how I can do something to get people's attention as they walk past. So now I do, I'll flash produce something or fire wallet or something like that. Because if you do a fire wallet, and most magicians have got one, if you walk past, you cannot help but do that. And then like, what's that? Oh, I'm a magician. And then you've got them. And then you go into your sales pitch. So there's nothing wrong with
like, it's a little bit like street magic, isn't it? You've got to build a crowd.
You've got to build a crowd, and that's important as well. And I perhaps didn't do that well enough in the early days. I would very much speak to a couple. Now I've realised, and there's a great little tip here that works for me. As I'm starting my routine, and I do my best trick. Why wouldn't I do my best trick? If they want to spend £700 on my top package, am I going to show them my 13th best trick? They're getting my absolute best trick. Absolutely, they are. But as even as I've started it, if people are walking past and having a look, come in. What's your name? Marie, nice to meet you. Marie, this is Shannon. Shannon, this is Marie. Imagine we were at a wedding now. I've just introduced you, and now you're going to be friends, and you see the penny dropping, and you just involve more and more people, and you explain this is what's happened, blah blah blah. You two go and get a drink, and you almost play the part of as you would on the day, and quite often they'll go off nattering to each other and then exchanging details and whatever. So building a crowd is important. And I'm not a stand-up magician or anything, but you know, I can do a crowd in close-up, and I thrive on it. I love it. So yeah, get the crowd, but get your stand looking good. Now on my stand, I do have flyers. Got some here if people really want to look. That's my generic flyer. Load of pictures of me at weddings. I can send you these.
If you send me an image of that, I'll put it up on the screen while we're talking about it.
On the back, a bit about the packages. My prices aren't on that one. On my other ones, now because I do a lot of venues where I'm recommended. Each venue now that's recommended get one that is just photos from that venue, because bride and grooms then go, oh, that's here. Prices are on the back. I put my prices on. That's another venue. I do have those, and I always make sure they go in the goodie bags. I think with flyers, a lot of people they'll grab a load of flyers, they'll put them in the bag, they go home, They might look through them once. I think probably 70% end up in a bin. And I know you've mentioned about business cards with this, and I think it's the same with business cards. A lot of people put them in the pocket, take the suit off, get lost in the ether. So what I do, I have my brochure on the stand, and it's quite a long brochure, full of imagery, full of everything, every detail they need to know. Price list goes on there. What I do when I speak to a couple, I have a note in my phone that I cut and paste, and I email them there and then, because that way it's in their phone. It's got links to all my social media. It's got my brochure on there. It's probably got at least 10 show reels. It's deliberately very long. And I make a joke to people. I say, if you got a cure for if you need a cure for insomnia, read it. It's probably too long, but at the end of that email, there's nothing that they need to ask. And if there is, they can get in touch. But there's show reels for the various packages in the day. If anyone wants it, I'll send it them. You probably don't need it as long as mine. It mentions awards, everything about me, where I'm recommended. At the end of it, there's that much imagery on there and that much information. You're like, it really does do a lot of weddings. And that is the most important thing for me. I have, depending on the venue, I'll have a picture of a wedding at that venue, and then the review that I got. And obviously I use the longer reviews that are better. I have those for each venue if people want to talk. What really works well for me, every time, Photo Box and Snapfish and all those, every time they do a 50% off deal, or sometimes they do a 75% deal, I order a photo book, and I get this that has got, I don't know, probably 200-300 photos in. And I just chronologically then, if they want to have a more in-depth discussion, well, what do you do on a day? I can talk them through this. And so I can do mix and mingle magic, make your guests feel welcome, get all these reactions. And it just goes through the day, the table magic, the lull. There's a section that if kids are there, I hate children, I absolutely hate children. But if they're there at a wedding, they are as important guests as anyone. So there's a section for children. There's a section for my bride and groom tricks. And I can talk about the day. And again, I say to them, this is how many weddings I do. Look at the venues that I do, because the venues are written on there. Cost probably, when they do one of their sales, 25 quid. That's gold. Have one of those. If I'm at a venue that recommends me, so Alois Hayes, for example, I've got one that's just Alois Hayes. So every wedding in there will be from Alois Hayes. That really works well. They're not a lot of money, but you need to get the photography your end to be able to make those. I have 2 iPads. I have one will show my show reel. If it's at a venue that recommends me, it will be a show reel specifically for that venue. And then on my other iPad, I have a slideshow. And again, if it's a generic one, I've got about 2,000 photos in there that just loop. If it's a particular venue, I have albums that will be weddings just for that venue. And you can just say that these are all weddings from here, and it's all reaction shots. And if you get a lot of bride and groom stuff on there, so any wedding venue, there's probably, I don't know, 15, say, bride and groom shots, or bride and bride shots, or groom and groom shots. It's just reassuring them that, oh God, he really does do a lot of weddings here, and that works for me. Does that answer the question?
That really does answer the question. Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal. What I'm seeing here is all of this stuff, it takes time. It's not taking money, really. It's not really that expensive. It's not like you're having to spend $5,000 a month on PPC ads, but it's taking time. And a lot of magicians, and let's just be honest, we all know them, they're not going to go to this effort.
No, they're not. And again, I come to that, growing organically. My wedding fair setup, which I did have a picture that I could put up, but don't worry, if people want it, they can see it. Mine now is a lot of money. I don't have a table. I used to have the box standard 6-foot table with my banners behind it. The biggest thing I can say to anyone is never stand behind the table. It's the worst thing you can do. It just becomes a barrier. Stand at the front of your table. You'll have seen this a million times, like me, from when you did fairs. You'll be on a stand next to, I don't know, a cake maker or a stationer. It doesn't matter what they do. And they'll sit behind the table on a chair. They'll probably scroll through their phone or iPad most of the day. And then you're packing up and you say, oh, do you have a good day? And they go, no, rubbish, didn't get an inquiry. And you're like, yeah, I know why. I stand in front and I will not getting away with people, but I'm quite, hello, how are we doing? Eye contact. Once you get eye contact, and maybe a flaming wallet as an example, or whatever you're going to do, they're going to be engaged. And then when you've got them, another tip, what I do a card trick. I say to them, put your names on the card, as everyone does. Oh, and put your wedding date on there. Now, if they say, oh, well, we haven't got a wedding date, that's fine. I'm not going to snatch your car back and say go, but they get perhaps the 1 minute version of what I'm going to do. If they put a date, so if I was doing a wedding fair next week and it's, I don't know, May of next year, they're getting the full shebang. They're gonna get the 5 minutes, and I'll talk to them. They'll get the email. I'll get everything. That's who I want to speak to. Not that I don't want to speak to people who haven't got a date, and I do still get bookings. I had to turn one down this week. Passed it to Chris. Met you 3 years ago at a wedding fair, and I said to him, "Remember what I told you? If you don't book me soon." So they'll get stuff, because people, you have to be nice to people and they have to remember you, but they're not in a position to pay on the day. And the other thing that made a massive difference for me is get one of them. Get a card payment machine. I use this is iZettle. There's a PayPal one. There's some up. Doesn't really matter what you use. That's great because it's only £1.75 for every £100. The amount of conversions when I started using that a couple of years ago, because there's a lot of people on the day, oh yeah, we're definitely going to book, and then you email them and for whatever reason they don't. If you get them on the day, you've got them on the day, and you say, oh, can take a card payment. It's only £100, which is my deposit. I've changed over the years my deposit. I trialed getting just a £25 deposit years ago, thinking wrongly that people on the day, I just think, oh, 25 quid. But the problem with that is if anything goes wrong down the line, and people do cancel for whatever reason, with 25 quid, they're just happy to write it off. They don't even care. They won't even reply to your email. Whereas 100 quid, and I might put that up next year. I know a lot of people get 250. I might. The bigger the deposit, the less likely they're going to mess you about or go quiet or whatever. So it's a big thing this year with deposits. I've only had to refund a couple, but £100 everyone's painful. If I'd have had to refund 250s this year for the people that have cancelled because of COVID, and you've got to, that would have been even more painful, as you know.
Yeah.
So that's my stand. And I just think, so I don't use a table now. If people want to picture my setup, I've got a big 8 foot, 9 foot sort of curved banner. In the front of that, I've got the case that it comes in that becomes a mini table, and I've got a pop-up table because there's a bit of stuff to get on there. One's got an iPad on each, the brochure, the flyers, the reviews. It's all there if people want it. But I would say 70% of people don't go through that because I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to send them that anyway, and that's more important than the flyers for me. And in front.
Which was my next question. What is your goal at a wedding fair? Are you trying to get people to book there and then? Are you trying to get them on your list? What's the ultimate goal?
To get them to book. Absolutely, to get them to book. I don't do, and I know you do this really well. I just don't. I will not bombard or send more than one email. I'll send them the email at the wedding fair, and I actually say to them, I'll only send you this one because, having met me now and having me perform the trick for you, and having seen that I'm as busy as I am, you're either going to book or you're not. If I send you 2 or 3 more emails now, I don't think for me it would work. I know it works for some people, that's fine. So I send them that one email. I don't do lists. I don't use, I should perhaps use MailChimp and all that. I don't. They get the full information email at the wedding fair. Then they don't hear from me. The only people I follow up with is if I get an email inquiry and I reply, and they've specifically given a date, after a couple of weeks, I'll come back to them and say, are you still interested? Because that's a definite lead. People at wedding fairs, they might be interested. People lie at wedding fairs. They might make out that, you're the best magician they've ever seen and all the rest of it. They might have no intention of booking. They might just be polite. British people generally are polite. So I'm not going to waste time and effort. I haven't got the time.
So do you send an email to people that haven't booked? So you send them one email. So if somebody who hasn't booked on the day, you send them one email. This is who I'm at. This is what I'm about. This is what I do. And then you leave it to them. What about the people that haven't got a date? Do you have a separate email for them, or do they have?
No, they get the same one. It's so full of info. I joke to them it's too long. I mean, it probably is too long. But I say to me, it's got that much on there. Once they've got that, they're either going to book or they're not for me. You know, and I understand that a lot of people do well with follow up, but I hate being pestered. As an aside, the amount of magic dealer emails I get now, they're landing. I'm not even reading them. I'm just deleting them. So I'll send them one quality one, and that seems to work for me. They're either going to book from that or they're not. And it'll have links to all my social media, and I'll say to them, have a look on social media. It's nice when you do a wedding fair, when you come away that evening, how many extra page likes you've got either on Facebook or on Instagram. Oh, they really have had a look. Then you know, oh, they really are interested. And they're the ones that are probably going to book. But yeah, just have a short, decent sales pitch. Don't talk to them about magic. Talk to them about how you can make their day better. So I'll talk about the various packages that I can do and the advantages of each one. And I'll be brutally honest with people. You know, I'll sometimes say, this won't work for you. An example being, my most popular package, I'm sure the same for you, is as soon as the ceremony's over, the post-drink ceremony, and you say, it's not about the magic, it's about ice breaking for people. I'll make a sort of a joke that the two sides of the family, there'll be a split down the room, and you have your side of the family there and your side of the family there, and they'll be eyeing each other up, and they'll be saying, oh, look at him, came to a wedding wearing trainers, and I'll just stop making them laugh about it. So, but seriously, I'll get this one over here and this one over here and come and do a trick, and then they've got something to talk about, and then they're friends, and then you'll be busy getting your wedding photographs done. There's certain family, your guests are going to be stood there eating vol au vents or whatever, drinking the cheap Prosecco. It's just keeping them entertained. And then I'll talk about the wedding breakfast as well. And my most popular package is the wedding drinks reception and the breakfast. But I'll talk to them about the lull between the breakfast and the evening. And I'll say to them, are you getting married at a hotel? If it's a hotel where, let's say, one of the family are from far away and they're all stopping at the hotel, the likelihood is at 4 o'clock, they're all going to go and check in because they can't check in the morning. So you've got to discuss with them, if 3/4 of the wedding are going to go at 4 o'clock and check in, is that the best time to have a magician? Have a think about it. If it's a venue where there's no accommodation, it's absolutely the time to have a magician. And it's just maybe steering them to what you want. If they're having a band on the night, I say to them, I wouldn't really have a magician with a band. It's that little bit louder. You're in that little bit more competition with a band because people will watch a band where they won't watch a DJ. But then I'll steer them maybe to the lull, or the first hour of the lull. Sorry, the second hour of the lull and the first hour of the evening. And then that way you can, what problem are you solving there? Well, your nighttime guests are going to arrive. And let's be honest, they're already a little bit miffed that they weren't invited to the day. Then they're going to walk in and they're going to see some people who are invited to the day, and they're going to be like, Sheila Jones is invited to the day and I'm not. They get there, there's been a power base in the day with everyone there having a drink. They need something to welcome them in. So magic will work there. And you see the penny, you're going, oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah. It's what problems you're solving. And you know, on the day, you say, you know, it might be that when they need to go and do the group Photoshop, and you get one of the shyer wedding photographers, and some of them are shy, they can't round everyone up. We'll do it for them. Everyone, and I'll frog march and go. You're solving problems for people. It's not about the magic. Yes, obviously some of it is about the magic, but then with that, you show them all the reaction shots and go, and as well as that, I'll get you these reaction shots, and then I'll do special tricks for the bride and groom that we all do. I'll go to that section in the folder. These are my favorite photos. Look at it. And it's just selling what you do for them.
See, I've talked about this. I've banged on about this on this channel for a while, but from a website point of view, what you want to do when you're speaking to people, you don't want to talk about yourself. You want to talk about, find out the pain that they have. Absolutely. And tell them how you can solve it. And sometimes it's about telling them about stuff that they don't even know. So it's like, your example about, would you like amazing shots for your wedding? Well, if you would, you get a magician will do this. And it's all about not, I am an award-winning magician, I can do this, I'm in the magic circle, blah, 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 blah. It's all about how you can make their day better.
That's such an important point what you just said, actually, that a lot of magicians, I think, forget that it's not about them on the day. I say to everyone, what I do is secondary to your day. It's not about me. It's about me helping you to make your day better. It's not about the magician. And we all know magicians where They think it is all about the magician, and it really isn't. And it's knowing on the day when to retreat and when to come forward. And we should be we are secondary to the event. I mean, I can't say any more simple than that. We are there to help the event get better. Not to make the event better because we're good, to help their day get better.
I'm willing to bet that if I sent a poll out to all your previous brides and grooms, they wouldn't even describe you as entertainment. They would say that you're there for all the different reasons. You know, yeah, the fact that you're entertaining people is great, but that's secondary to everything else that you're doing throughout the day. You know, everything that you've talked about. You know, that's probably why they're booking you and why they're prepared to spend the money on you that you're charging.
Yeah,
because you are putting across what you do a lot better than the guy that met at the previous wedding fair that goes, I'm great, I can do card tricks, look at me.
Yeah, and do you know what I think it is? I don't think you can have an ego. Now, we've all got an ego. We all have as magicians. Yeah. Don't show the ego, I think. Be humble, be nice. It's just easy to be nice. Quite a few of my reviews, it always touches me. You say, oh, he came as a magician and left as our friend. And I think that's just the nicest thing anyone can say. And a good majority of my bride and grooms now add me on Facebook as a friend. Now, there's a whole discussion around that, whether you should or shouldn't do it. I do. But as a result, now I don't put anything political or controversial or football on my Facebook, because you're probably going to piss off people. Don't ever mention Brexit on there, because half of your brides are going to be pro-Brexit, half your brides are going to be anti-Brexit. And it staggers me how many small business owners put stuff that could be seen as controversial. I realise I'm talking about controversy to the wrong person on the planet, but
no, I was just sitting here thinking.
You're thinking, no, but you don't.
But here's the thing, mate. Here's the thing. I totally agree with what you're saying. You have made a brand around Owen Strickland.
Yeah.
Owen Strickland. For me, you go on the Slightly Unusual website, you'll see no mention of Craig Petty.
Yes.
Slightly Unusual is not about me.
Yeah.
You look at Non-Stop Kids. There's not even a single picture of me anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not about me. People wouldn't add me. Our clients in Slightly Unusual and Non-Stop Kids, the people who add me on Facebook are magicians, because it's all about Craig Petty's Magic TV. But I don't give a shit what magicians think about my opinions. If you don't like it, fuck off. But my clients, they'd never find me on Facebook. Or I do network, but the people that I network with that do know me,
yes,
they know what I'm like, because you know they know that.
If I had my time again, I don't know if I would have perhaps had a magical name as opposed to my own name. It just seemed the obvious thing at the time to do. If I had my time again, I might have gone down a different route, maybe for that reason. But it's nice to be friends with people, and you don't get repeat bookings for weddings. Well, hopefully not. But I do a lot of. I mean, I've got an office Christmas gig in 2 weeks randomly in this mad world for a previous bride. You will become their go-to magician if they're in the business and they've got big businesses like the higher end clients tend to. You'll get a lot of work from them.
Yeah. So that is amazing. So that really, and I think summing up the whole wedding fair thing, one thing to finish off is work hard. I've seen wedding magicians that do wedding fairs, and they're pumping it for the first hour, and then they just sit down for the other 4 hours.
Yeah. And it does, and you've got to keep going, because the person that comes in at my last wedding fair at Hogarth this year, someone came in as everyone was packing down. Now I was packing down, but everyone was ignoring me. They spoke to me. They booked there and then. They'd been for a family lunch next door in a restaurant, and they thought, oh, we'll have a look round. Didn't even know there was a fair on that day, which was, I said to the venue, we really didn't know that they were going to be here, and they booked at your venue. But they booked me at 3:30. Everything was packed up, but I spoke to them as if it was the first one, and they booked there and then. You've got to speak to the last person, the middle person, the first person, all the same, because that's their first impression of you. They don't care that it's 3:45 and everyone's packing up. They want to speak to the magician or the photographer or whatever. Be nice to them, spend the time for them. Don't say, you got no chance, mate, I've got to be in a pub for 5. Be nice to them. And you just said a phrase there, work hard. There's no secret to being a busy magician, I don't think, because you know me, I don't take my magic skills seriously at all. I belittle myself, but I take my business incredibly seriously. But you've got to be nice, but you've got to work hard. There is no shortcut to getting gigs. You've got to work hard. And whether that's physically working hard at wedding fairs, and I must probably do, I don't know how many I do, but February, March, September, October, November, probably every Sunday. And they're horrible. Getting up in the morning and traveling an hour, hungover. I sound like an alcoholic, and I'm not. You've got to do them. You've got to work hard. If you're going to sit at home and not do fair, you've got to work hard on your social media. People don't know that you're there unless you tell them you're there doing what you do, and you've got to do it. And I used to have this phrase, what have you done today? Lee Thompson has a great phrase on his socials. He says something, get up, go out, do something.
Yeah,
absolutely right. Now, it might be if you're working full time, you can't do it every day, but you probably can do something. Do you know how much stuff I get done while I'm sat on the toilet making a little video or a little like Canva, which is a great thing. Wherever you are, you got your phone on you. The stuff and the apps at your disposal now. There's no excuse. If anyone wants to do a brochure, my brochure, there's a very good site called Lucid Press. Now, sadly, the people that printed this, they've got a little bit of a whiteboard, but no one really notices that. You can do all that. I'm not a graphic designer at all. It's a free site. As long as you've got a logo, you drag and drop everything and you type it and it does it all for you. It's really easy to use. It's called Lucid Press. And then there's Canva, and there's no end of apps that can do stuff like that. The only other thing I do to mention on wedding fairs, I sometimes, and people will disagree with this, I sometimes do an offer on the day that if you book today, and by today I mean now, I'll knock you 50 quid off. And that's a judgment thing. I don't necessarily say it to everyone. If the conversation is going that way, and you get a feel for this over the years, you can see them talking, and so we'll go and have a think. But if you want to book today, I'll knock 50 quid off. That's something that works for me. I used to do things where I would, instead of discounting, I don't like that word, I would add value. So I bought
an extra half an hour.
Yeah, things like that. But I bought a white wedding post box. So I said, if you book me, you can have that for the day, saves you hiring one. It cost me, it's a decent one. It cost me, I don't know, 150 quid. And I said to him, it has to be my platinum package, and it will only work for my platinum package, which is drinks reception and then breakfast, because then I get there before they're out. The post box can go down. Everyone in the day will then post it. I take it with me, but I replace it with a pop-up one, which are a couple of quid, that the evening guests who, I say to them, let's be honest, they're not important to you. That's why they're coming to the evening. That worked for a while. I bought a load of, the heart Dropbox frames that people has as a guest book. I bought a load of them once for 8 or 9 quid each. Can't remember before. If you book today, you can have one of those. That worked to a certain degree, but I stopped doing that last year because I thought I don't need those add-ons. They're causing me pain. They had their use, but now I think my standing, if there is a standing, is such in the wedding world that they're probably going to book without any gimmicks. But what you just said, absolutely. In fact, only last week, I do a 90-minute package if people want to book just for the drinks reception. Not many people do. And I said, well, we're not having a proper meal, blah, blah. So tell you what I'll do. I'll do the 2-hour package. If you book today, I'll do the 2-hour package for 90 minutes. It's 495 quid. I'm not going to quibble over an extra half an hour if they're getting me 495 quid in the current climate. So they booked there and then. The beauty of what I've done with it, the pay machines, is you can send a link remotely from the app. So if people want to pay a deposit, and with the scam pages now, there's a lot of bad wedding suppliers out there, and the scam pages are full of them. People like now the comfort of either paying PayPal, which is fine, or paying with a card. Once you've been with iZettle for a certain amount of time, you can send a link and they can pay from their phone with the card, and that really helps.
That's great. That's awesome. You've mastered wedding fairs, mate. You really have.
I haven't, because I would like to get even more bookings, but I don't want to jinx anything, but I normally get some bookings on the day. I don't get 10 or 12. I hear some magicians say that I don't get that many. I wish I did. My best one this year before lockdown, I think I got 6 on the day. even that's rare for me because I'm more expensive.
Mm.
I think if I went down to say 300 quid for a wedding, I probably could get 8, 9, 10 bookings a day, but I'm not. I'm 600, 700 quid for my top packages. So I understand that a lot of people don't want to commit to that.
Because you're charging more than your £300 magician, for example, you getting 6 a day is the equivalent of someone else getting 10 a day or 10. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But you're having to work less, and you've got more days.
In the summer, I'll do, on the peak dates, certainly 2 a day, and if the geography allows it and the timings allow it, then I might squeeze a third in, albeit that's hard work and that's pressure because they always overrun. One thing I should say about my platinum package, my main package, is the big selling point I say to them is I don't put a time limit on that. It's £700. I say I do not put a time limit on it, and by that I mean, and I'll explain to the bride or the groom, whoever's arriving second, you're going to be 20 minutes late. They will. The photographer will overrun. They will. The meal might overrun. It will. If you book a magician for a 2-hour package at 2 o'clock and you're 20 minutes late and the photographer runs by 20 minutes, the magician ends up doing 1 hour, 20 minutes. And for 600-700 quid, that's a lot of money. So I stay until I've done every table at the meal, even if they want to do speeches before the meal, which is now getting all the rage. And I get why, because people want to be able to get the speeches out of the way and enjoy the food. So I did my first one, wedding season last year, which was up in Cheshire. The speeches were 1 hour and a quarter. And it was a bad idea because, funnily enough, on that day, there were more people at the end of the speeches in the bar than there were at the tables because people just had enough. But I say to them, but if you want to do that, that's fine. I will stay until I've done every table. So on average, that package would be, I don't know, normally works out 2.5, maybe 3 hours. But you know what? It might be that I'm there for 3.5 hours. That's fine. You've got that peace of mind that I won't be disappearing, forgive the pun. I'll be there until every table's done. And that helps reassure them as well.
That's great. That's awesome.
Now, what happens is if you have a second wedding that day, you've got to consider that. So if someone wants to book me for the lull and I'm already booked in the daytime, and then you work out the distance, so I tend to do Staffordshire to Warwickshire, which can be 1.5 hours. For the second person, you have to say, well, look, my first wedding is at 2 o'clock. It normally on average takes 3 hours. I said, but what I can't say to you is I'll be here for 5:30 because I can't guarantee that. You have to give me a little bit of flexibility. I will still do a full 2 hours, but it might be that I can't get here till 6. But instead of saying that as a negative, I say the beauty of that is at 6 o'clock, I'll do an hour of the lull for the day guests, who by which point are now bored. And I say to them, God forbid it's a rainy day and they're stuck inside, etc., etc. I'll do that hour, and then I'll do the first hour of the evening that your evening guests then get welcome with magic. Then everyone at the wedding has seen a magician, and you have to kind of steer them into what works. And in the same way, if I'm already booked for the lull and people want to book me for the lull, I can't do it on book that day. So the lull's popular. So the most popular really is the drinks reception, because the two sides of the family don't know each other. You steer them that way and make out the pros and cons of that. And it's about having that flexibility to think on your feet. If people are 100% what they want, then that's fine. Then I say, well, no, I can get you a magician, and I pass it to one of my trusted people or whatever. Yeah. If it's really desperate, I'll put it on gig share. But there's 4 or 5 magicians. We all pass work to each other. And I know you did was it the races you did this year for me?
I did something for you, yes.
Yeah, I think it was races or something, but I couldn't do it. So, I must have passed probably last year 6-7 grand's worth of bookings on. But I pass it to the people that pass me the work. So it's rare that I'll put anything on gig share. It's stuff that really no one wants to do, or it's a really busy day, or it's a lower end one that I know the people I pass to don't want to do it for that money either. And the other thing is don't chase cheap gigs. Because it'll bite you on the arse. And I see it every Christmas. In the old days when I used to do a Christmas residency, or almost aim to do a Christmas residency, I don't now, albeit I've got one this year. You have a conversation, I'm sure you have this, in August they'll start thinking about it and they'll message you and say, we're looking at paying £150 a night. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. Well, so-and-so said they'll do it for that. Well, go and book them then. I said, but if you book me for, and we all do a residency price. If mine say 300 quid, I say, but I guarantee you it will be me that comes. What I don't like is magicians will take a residency at Christmas and make out it's them that are going to do it. And then they'll get the chance of a £600 corporate gig come in, and they'll drop the residency like a stone. And then that'll end up on gig share. And you could end up with not a great magician doing it. And then I think that reflects badly on you. So I only put people I know and trust in gigs, and I will only take multiple night gigs.
With Slightly Unusual, they book Slightly Unusual. They don't book a particular magician.
It's different.
And if somebody gives me a gig like you have in the past, it's like, yeah, it's me doing it. It's just how it should be done, in my opinion.
I think so, because particularly with a wedding, they've invested their time and money in you. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to then say, oh, my mate Dave's coming and doing it. And me and Chris set up, about this, me and Chris set up a Facebook page, not to conquer the world, but just a wedding fair that if I know I'm booked, and I have all my, it's really important with any business to have a good structure. I use Dropbox a lot with folders. I've got spreadsheets. This year I've gone to Gigio, which is brilliant. Finally took the plunge. But in my phone, I've got my diary because that's backed up on the cloud. You can never lose that. So if I'm booked, double booked on a day, I say I'm already booked. I said, but my other company could do it, and my business partner. It just sounds better than going, my mate Chris can do it for you. And then if I look at that page and it's full of weddings, it just looks more professional for a free setup on Facebook than saying my mate can do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what? I think this has been such valuable information. Let me ask you very quickly, when it comes to the weddings, and you're actually on the day performing there, what are your favorite tricks to perform? When you select tricks, do you have something specific in mind?
Yes. I don't know if you've lost me. I've just had a missed call, and it's linked to my Mac and it's over. So let me just see if I can bring you up.
I can see you fine, mate.
Oh, okay. Oh, I can see myself. That's all that matters. I can't see you anymore, but that's fine. So people that know me, I am a massive Virgin fanboy of Gary Jones, Chris Congreve, and Lee Smith, who doesn't bring so much stuff out anymore, but did back in the day. And that stuff is probably 60% of my working set. You've got some stuff in there as well. My bride and groom trip, perhaps we should talk about that as well, but certainly for mix and mingle, I tend to do stuff that's quick. It has to be an instant reset. Gary, Chris's, and Lee Smith is all that. I'm happy to talk about my best routine and whatever. So mix and mingle, I will do a bit of cards. I use Richard Sanders stuff, which is amazing. He's an amazing creator. I do turbo stick and sponge balls. I've got a coin set. I might do coin vexed. Albeit at weddings now, I tend to do that just for the bride and groom. But with a deck of cards, you've got 20, 30 tricks you can do well there anyway. By the end of the gig, my deck of cards is probably half a deck. I get everything signed. They keep the card. People like to keep the card. I put my details on the back of every card as well. That's great advertising, and that really works well. People, particularly ladies, I find, tend to want to keep the card, and they will keep it in the bag. It's amazing how many people you meet over the years they'll open the bag, or still got your card, or still got your bent 20p. It staggers me. So short, sharp, quick stuff. My opening routine hasn't changed for years. A wedding, I start with one short of a full deck, which is a Gary Jones routine. It uses a gimmick that is a single card gimmick. I do that. The gimmick, as part of the routine, ends up resetting your pocket. I then go into it's a mixture of a misdirection trick by Gary, and then Lee Smith's, I think he calls it ice breaking routine, which is a card transpo. It's quick. It's amazing magic. Even when I do it, it's a good trick. And I don't take my magic skills at all seriously because I've only been into magic, 8 or 9 years. That little routine, and there's a little Erdnase move in there. There's a card to pocket in there. There's a card flick in there. It's 3 or 4 minutes of absolute gold that You do that for a little group, go and do it. It's an instant reset. It's a normal deck in use. For me, it's the perfect opener. Now, everyone's got their own opinions on openers, and that's fine. That just works for me. And then once it's great. Once you've been around in Preston once, you know this from weddings, they'll call you, oh, come in. And then when you come to the tables, they already know you as the magician, and they're already a much more willing audience, having wowed them, hopefully, in the drinks reception. I mean, I wouldn't want to start off at doing tables, and sometimes I get requested that, and I say to people, ugh. I mean, I will do it. I will do what they want is the bottom line. But I say to them, are you sure? Because it's hard going up to a table cold, and we all know that from corporate gigs, you know. Now, weddings aren't the same level of arseholes that corporate gigs are, but it's still, you know, you're going up cold, the soup's arriving, you know, there's a lot going on. If you're the magician that's wowed them, oh, here he is, forget about the soup, you know, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I do stuff that's instant reset. Pocket management is everything. Particularly for weddings in the summer, because there are some days when you're going outside for the mix and mingle, you just cannot wear a jacket. If you do, you're going to sweat that much, it looks embarrassing. So then you have to strip it all down, and what can you get in? What can you get in the pockets? And you don't need a lot. I think every magician, when they start, and I was certainly guilty of this, and perhaps to a certain degree still am, you carry too much stuff on you. You don't need 80% of it. You really could go and do a mix and mingle session with a pack of cards, maybe a gimmick, and you know, you don't need a lot on you. Once you've done a circuit of the room, there's nothing to stop you going back to your bag and having a quick reset. I tend not to do that. I tend to have everything on me that I'm going to use, but it's not difficult. But we spoke about this DVD. The biggest single DVD that changed my magic was eye candy, because that took me from someone who'd learned how to do a double lift and erd nays, you know, the usual moves, to be able to do those moves and then put them in routines that are just working routines. And eye candy for me, if there's ever one DVD I recommend to up and coming magicians, it's eye candy. Just go and get it. You could gig for the rest of your life just off eye candy. And then when you look at Gary,
slowly doing the routines on eye candy as part of the Magic Lives that I do every day.
How are you?
Brilliant.
It's such a good routine. I mean, I must gig at least 5 or 6 routines.
Well, it's great news for you. I've interviewed Lee Smith.
Yeah,
and Gary Groom.
You even mentioned me. I was like, oh, bless you.
You've been mentioned on most interviews, to be honest.
Oh. I know that, Craig. I watched every single one of them.
There was somebody who mentioned you that I was really surprised about. Who was it? I can't remember. Some American. I think Sean Farquhar or somebody mentioned you. But anyway.
He's ever heard of me, but
somebody. I was like, oh, yeah, Owen on, yeah. I can't remember who it was, but anyway, what was I going to say? I've spoken to Chris Congreve, Lee Smith, and Gary Jones, and I've also interviewed Russ Stevens, who obviously runs RSVP, and I've got them all to agree on camera that they're going to make and produce a new eye candy.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, it'll be gold. Well, Chris and Gary years ago, I'm sure, I've not seen Chris yet, it's not gone live, and I'm sure Gary, they brought out 3 DVDs that work as gold. Workers Corner,
pseudo pickpocketing,
you got
the coin one.
I have them right here in my little in my magic DVD pile. And the stuff on it, they were let down slightly by, and they'll tell you this themselves. They
both talked about this.
They hired a wedding videographer who was zooming in, zooming out, and missed half of it. They mentioned last year that perhaps they should, and I think they should do a DVD of the best 2 tricks of each one as a work. It would fly out. I mean, absolutely fly out. 3C, you can look like an expert coin magician with the routine 3C off eye candy, which one of the first things I ever learned. You can look like an expert coin magician without being an expert coin magician. And you are an expert coin magician. I know, but 3C's such a good routine. And now Chris has come up with a version where you don't need a table. It all happens in your hands. It's work as gold. I mean, it really, I can't speak highly enough of it. And it was really weird because one of the first magic DVDs I bought was eye candy. And they're magic gods to me. Them 3 are magic gods. And I'm very good friends with Chris now. I'm good friends with Gary when we meet up and have a drink. And it was weird. Within a couple of years, Gary came for my 40th birthday many years ago now. But my then girlfriend arranged for him to come and have the day with me. and he did a very kind offer, which I can't say because he'll get inundated. But we had a brilliant day. He came here for a couple of hours. We then went to the pub for a couple of hours, and then we had a meal on the evening. Then Chris Congreve came, and that's where I became friends with Chris, and me and him are like best friends now. And I helped him move house a couple of weeks ago, and it was within a year or two I was gigging with Gary Jones and Chris Congreve, and every year they do a big NHS gig at the Molyneux, the Wolves football ground. And I had to pinch myself. I'm like, I bought eye candy like 2-3 years ago, and I'm working with Gary Jones and Chris Congreve, and I still pinch myself at that. And they were both so lovely. And Chris wound me up the night before a little bit in the pub about they were going to stitch me up. And you can imagine how nervous I was anyway. And Grant Maynard was there, and he was laughing. And but yeah, and the gig, and they both came and watched me. I imagine the pressure of that. Gary Jones watching, but he's so lovely, Gary, and he said some so kind things that night, as did Chris, that actually made me well up. And then you just think, oh, it's going okay, isn't it? I'm now gigging with Gary Jones and Chris Congreve. It gets no better than that. They're the two of the best workers in the world. Forget the country. And Lee Smith the same. I still do a lot of his stuff. Icebreaker is such a good routine. He does a love card under the box. He does well. You do a lovely card under the box that I use. Scoop. What a trick Scoop is. I can't speak. I'm going to sound like a real sort of fanboy here, but I cannot speak highly enough of their magic. It's everyone should own their DVDs. He did a great one, The Unknown with Mark Bendel, absolute gold on there, where Bag for Life was born.
Yep.
Their stuff, honestly, any up and coming magicians, just go and buy their stuff. Go on Secondhand Magic, or buy it off them actually. But go on Secondhand Magic, you'll pick it up. It's absolute gold.
The thing is, it's so old, other people aren't doing it because they're
so old
looking for that new thing to do. So
iPhone 10, as it was called then, and at the time I think we were on iPhone 3. They'd have to call it iPhone.
Still just as good now on the iPhone 10 thing as it was back then.
Well, on Unknown, you'll know this routine. They took it one step further with the Ouija board that adds another kicker to it, and that's such a brilliant trick. But Chris has got a new book coming out, and I know some of the stuff on there. And I hate to be one of those magicians who go on Facebook and say, "Oh, when you showed me that in 1994, I loved it." But some of his new routines, it's rare for me to put a new trick straight in my working set. Really rare. I have a test system where I do the girlfriend test, maybe friends test. Then I do the drunk test. If I can do it drunk in the pub, then I know I can gig it. Chris's last routines, straight in my working set. I've done them at the weddings that I've done this year, and they absolutely fry. So, a bit of promo for Chris, but his new book's full of gold. And I struggle with books.
The interview with Chris, he performed a couple of the routines out the new book.
Oh, did he? Which ones did he do?
One where he was cutting to a joker. They named a card, and he cut to a joker, and he said, "Let me take the jokers out," and he put them to one side, and he said, "Let me try and cut again," and he couldn't get to it, and he's like, "Oh, what was the card?" And the two jokers had the card written on the back of it.
It's his Omen trick, which Alakazam brought out that had 4 outs. This one's all self-contained, and it's made it infinitely better. And I did it 2 weeks ago at a wedding, and I promise you, it fries people. And you can build it up as well. I joke about this is dead cutting, the hardest trick in the world, and every time I go to do it, I'll get you banned from the casino, and then you take your time, hardest trick in the world, and I build it up that much when it's a comedy moment when you bring the joker out. And I say, 3 of clubs. You don't want the 2 of clubs. I know where that is. You can make it as long or short as you want, and it absolutely does that to people.
Oh, it's great.
And he's got a coin prediction routine in there that equally goes straight in the working set. That's incredible. It's self-working. Now, I'm not a fan of self-working tricks generally. These are something else.
What do you do for the bride and groom?
I do 3 tricks for the bride and groom, sometimes 4, depending on the timings. I will sometimes do them a trick. A lot of it will depend on the photographer. Sometimes I'll do a trick in mix and mingle when they have finished with their photos and they come back. I do 3 tricks especially for them. The first one is your trick. Now I call it the love test. I don't know if it's off.
You know what? I refer to it as the love test now, but it's called Easy Waltzer.
Is that what it's called? Right. Well, I call it the love test. And
on
stuck in a coin stuck in a room without coins.
Yeah,
locked in a
room without coins. Yeah.
So it's anniversary waltz, but with an ungimmick deck. I prefer it to anniversary waltz. More so that just when I gig normally, mix and mingle, wherever it may be, you can do it. If you've got a couple, I don't think there's a stronger trick really. And I frame it as a love test, and I think that is such a big part of it. Can you find her card? Can you find his card? Oh, you found it, and it's the perfect trick. And most of my reaction shots with bride and grooms, well, there's two. It'll be that. And then my next trick. So I do that. That's normally my first one. I go to IKEA and I buy 50 at a time. They do like a double-sided picture frame. So on the day, I'll put that in the frame, leave it on the top table. Now I joke to him, it's a 95 pence plastic frame. And I say to him, don't get excited. I'm going to go and put this in a frame. It's a 95 pence IKEA frame. Don't get excited, but it will keep it clean. And the amount of the photographers who will then get a nice close-up photo of it on the day. Some people keep it in the frame. They used to do a red heart one, IKEA. They stopped doing it. Almost looked tacky, but I made a joke that it was tacky, but they don't care because they love the trick. And they've got it in front of them now while they eat the meal, and they can turn it around and it's got, if you know how the trick ends, it's got the signatures on both sides. So I do that. Amazing trick. Well done. I used to do scoop, but I think your version actually is better for bride and groom. I then do coin vexed for them because it's such a strong trick. Now, obviously, you have to have your own 50 and 20p because the bride and groom are unlikely to have money on them. It can happen, or you could borrow it, but I think it's just easier now to just drop the 15 and 20 pence. I do the Mark Lavell's 2 coin version. That came out, I think, with Coinvex 3. Look, listen to me. It sounds like I know my crediting, and I'm rubbish with crediting. But I loved Coinvex, but I'm not a particularly strong person. I'm sort of tall and thin, or not that thin after lockdown. But with the 1 coin version, I can't end up doing that. With the 2 coin version that Mark Lavelle came up with, it's genius because you give them the first coin, get it back. You give them the second coin. There's no attention on you. And there's a lovely thing with Coinvex that if you just move forward and so what you're doing, in doing that, it makes the bend easy. If people struggle with the bend, I think Prop Dog now sell easy bend coins, but it's 20p goes lovely. So I do Coinvex with the bride and groom's initials on both, and I'll just frame it that, and I make jokes around this. Everything I do is light-hearted. I'm not a serious magician. So I say, put your initials on both and put your initials on both. That one. The 10 pence represents the good times. The 20 pence represents occasional lovers' tiffs. I don't say bad times. I don't like the idea of bad times in the wedding, but occasional lovers' tiffs about, I'll say to you what you spend at the pub. And then the bride, I'll say what you spend on clothes, shoes, hair, makeup, handbags, sunbeds, holiday. Does that sound like I'm biased? And just make it fun. Get them to do it. And if anyone looks at my reaction shots, probably the most common one is the bride and groom. When they do the reveal, that there's a moment, and then I do the coin bend, like that. And probably 70% of my bride and groom shots are them doing that with that kind of face. If the photographer's there, it's the perfect time. The other thing I do at weddings, I think you do this, I always video me doing the bride and groom trick. Always. 2 reasons. One, it's nice to send it them. But the main reason is you can pause that video and at some point you've got the money shot right there. Yeah. And, every single wedding at some point, and even if you do a joke, because sometimes you get bride and grooms that don't react. Some weird people don't react to magic. It does happen. It's rare, but it does happen, as people know. So if you make a joke, so I'll say you've got good friends and family here, and I normally point at the person with the camera and go, oh, and him, and they'll look up and they'll go, well, there's your money shot right there. They're laughing. Yeah. And you pause it, you put that on your social media, you send them the clip, you get amazing review. And what I do now is, I'm quite big on reviews. I know you are. I say to them, yeah, I'd love you to leave me a review. You can't force them. I say, I'll upload this to my Dropbox because that's where everything goes. send them a review link and say, if you could leave me a review. And then when it's finally uploaded to Dropbox, which does take a time, I'll send you the video. And that just gives them a little nudge into doing the review. Not to the point that I wouldn't send it if they don't do a review, that would be wrong. But it's all about just giving them that nudge. And last year I did a bit of a purge on trying to get Google reviews up. So I went back to the last 2 years worth of bride and grooms going, I know you gave me a review on platform A, which is really kind. Would you mind doing a Google review? And my Google reviews went up to 130 something, which helps with SEO and whatever. So yeah, I do the love test, as I call it, coin vexed. And then I sometimes do the wedding trick, which is a John Allen trick, which is, again, an amazing trick, self-working. I won't say any more than that. I wouldn't want to tip any methods here, but people should go and buy that off John Allen. It uses, or I use with it, some heart-shaped Post-it notes. Great trick, I know you know it. And again, you can put that in a frame, and it just looks lovely. And you can make things. So, like with coin vex, you can say, "Is this the first time you've ever written your new initials to the bride?" For example. Oh yeah, that 20p then becomes the first thing she's ever written with her new initials, and that becomes an absolute little memento for them. I have a guy who I buy a little coin wallet off. It's got a lucky sixpence in it. It comes in a lovely pink bag, and I put the coins in there. And on the lucky sixpence, it has their names, their wedding day. On the back, it has my logo. So there's your coins in a nice little bag for you, and they'll keep that forever. And then even if they forget who you are, I mean, hopefully they don't, but on the back, there's your details. You know.
Gary Jones on his interview talked about the idea of having a lucky six. He bought in a load of lucky sixpences from eBay, and he does bag to life.
Yes,
the lucky sixpence and like a split coin. Yeah. He says, look, and he pulls the split coin out and he gives them the bag with the lucky sixpence in it. And again, it's got his initials on, he's got his details on it.
There was a good DVD once on split coins. Did you ever see it?
I think it's a terrible gimmick, mate.
I actually think that I think you just reminded me. I think the idea actually of the sixpence and the lucky sixpence was from Gary and Chris's workshop day. I think that's where it's not my idea. I'm not that creative. I'm pretty sure that was Gary's idea on the day. Then he would have mentioned it back then that he does coin vex and gives them the coin. And I found someone on eBay who gets a lot of work for me now. He does them for, I don't know, £2 or £3, but just as a finishing touch, it just looks lovely when you give them that, and they love stuff like that. The other one I have done in the past, it takes a little bit more time. Paul Brook does a brilliant routine called Juxtaposed that involves a business card. Again, I don't want to tip any methods here, but the bride and groom will end up saying the same number completely aside from each other. Probably leave it there. I've not explained that very well, but it's £15. Go and buy that. It's a brilliant trick. And if you do that anywhere else, it leaves people with a business card. His stuff's brilliant as well. So that's another one I can do. Lawrence Turner has got a brilliant, and people that know Lawrence Turner will know what he does. I don't think I'm tipping anything here. He does rough and smooth decks, I think it's fair to say. He does a brilliant trick called Our Souls, which is not, as you've just heard, it's O-U-R and then souls as in soulmate, where they both choose the same card. I think Ryan Tricks did it, or it might have been Damien O'Brien did it on one of the TV shows. Brilliant trick. It's £14. Go and get it off Lawrence.
I'll give you a big tip right now. Have you ever heard of The Power of Love?
The song, not the...
It's a glorious thing. Makes one man cry, makes another man sing. No, there's a trick called The Power of Love by David Regal that's completely flown under everyone's radar.
I've not seen it, no. In fact, my radar's on there.
It's amazing. It really is. It's flown under everyone's radar. He closes his magic castle act with it. Basically, it's a deck of cards. And it's got the same 6 cards repeated 9 times, I think it is, or 8 times. And basically, each card represents something, and he deals the cards out. And there's a desert. There's a picture of a desert which represents periods of loneliness, and it's all about going through life and everything.
Right, yeah.
You give as many people as you want to can do this. So you give them the 6 cards, and you explain what each card is, and you give like as many. So you could give one to the bride, one to the groom, one to the mother of the bride, one to the father of the groom. You can give everyone on the top table these 6 cards, and basically they mix them up, face down, as much as they want to. And it is incredibly fair. Now I want you to flip one pile over onto the other pile, and you're getting everyone involved in it. And yet, when they spread it out, they've all got the heart pointing upwards, because one of the cards is heart. So there's 6 cards, and they all represent a different thing, and the heart represents the power of love. And yet they were all getting involved on the head table, every single one of them, and mixing these cards face up and face down. And yet when you spread them out, every single person, even though they've all shuffled them all individually and they're all examinable, it's a normal deck, it's a specially printed deck, but there's nothing gimmicked about the cards. They could examine them, and the hearts are all pointing up. And what I do, and I've never told this to anybody, is I've bought 10 of these David Regal decks.
Right.
And every time I do it, I let the bride and groom have one set of those 5, 6 cards.
That's a lovely giveaway, yeah. And stuff like that, adding value, honestly, you can't underestimate how powerful that is. Forget the magic, the giving them a gift like that. I tried years ago, it wasn't my idea, I think it might have been a John Morton idea, of getting everyone at the wedding to sign a separate deck of cards and give the bride and groom that as almost like a guest book.
That's actually a David Penn idea. He talked about
David Penn idea. Sorry, David.
About it on the product review, and what I've done with it, and I've talked about that on this channel because I do that at weddings. And it's David's idea. He as I go up to a table, I have a separate deck. I hand it out. Every single person as I'm performing just signs a card, and then as I go up to the bride and groom, I do Easy Waltzer.
Yeah.
And at the end of Easy Waltzer, I switch the deck. And I have a cover card on the back of the, I get them to sign them on the back. And I have a cover card on the back of the deck. So at the end, I say, you know, that's a nice souvenir, but you've got so many people at this wedding. Let me try something. And I do an Erdnase change. The first signature appears. And then as I go through, every card has got a signature from somebody else. And I take their card from Easy Waltzer. I put it into the deck with all of the signatures on. And I say, that's for you.
I love that. I'm so going to do that. I'm going to nick that. And apologies, David. I credited the wrong person. Sorry. That'll be.
Well, I think David. All David did is he just gave them the deck at the end. But I do the deck switch.
Talking to David Penn, can I tell you a true story about David Penn? And this is so lovely because I think over the years he's maybe misunderstood. I think it would be fair to say he was one of the examiners at my.
No, it's not. He's a total asshole.
He was one of my examiners at the Magic Circle, and in the days when I only joined a few years ago, and best thing I ever did, love it. But everyone used to go to the Ibis Hotel round the corner before they flattened it for HS2. And I got there early one day, and Dave Penn was at the bar. Oh, right, Dave, and I sort of knew him from going in World Magic Shop, but I don't think we weren't friends. It would be fair to say because we don't live with each other and we didn't socialise. But someone I look up to massively. And he said, "Oh, is this your first visit since you passed your exam?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll have a drink." He said, "I remember your routine." I said, "I know you examined it." I said, "Thanks for the pass." He said, "If you want, I could maybe spend a bit of time with you and make that better for you." I went, "That'd be like awesome." He said, "Well, not today." And a week or two later, fair play to him, he met me in the same place, and we must have sat there for, I don't know, 90 minutes, 2 hours. And he went through every detail, remembered everything that I did, which is amazing. And he gave me some unbelievable tips of how it made it better. And you know what? He didn't have to do that. And I always think fair play to you for that. So
he's a great guy. He gets a bad rap from some people.
Just get a bad rap, And I remember the things over the years that have got. I'm not going to mention them now, but I thought you didn't have to do that. No. And in many ways, we're not competitors. We're not, but we're Midlands wedding magicians. So it wasn't in his interest to do that, and he did. And
the thing with Dave, and I know him fairly well. He cares about magic. He just cares about the art of magic.
Oh, massively.
He's a ruthless business person. Don't get me wrong. He is ruthless. But he cares about the art of magic.
Oh, he does. And he's an unbelievable magician. I love him. He's certainly someone I look up to. he's one of the few magicians. You're one of the few. He's one of the few that does more than one genre, expert level. So he can do a wedding brilliantly. He can do a conference for 5,000 people on stage with his iPad routine or his other stuff. You know, fair play. There's not many magicians that can do different genres well.
There's not.
I couldn't do a stage show for 5,000 people. I do little bits now of stand up at weddings only because under the current circumstances, I think you need to. And I do a COVID package for weddings now. But I've got no ambition to be a stand up magician because I wouldn't be very good at it. And you know, as much as I wanted to be a wedding magician when I started magic, people say now, well, we should go and do cruises. It would take me 10 years to get to the level that I would need to go and do cruises. And someone we're good friends with, as an example, who's done it perfectly, Tom Crosby. He's got his show now at world-class level, it would be fair to say. But he's done the years of doing it. He went, you know, he's done the Fringe every year to make it perfect. He did a summer show. He did a summer season with Matt Wright in Torremolinos.
I've actually interviewed him for the channel, and he talked all about his career and what he went through. And he went through.
And well, that routine started, you know, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago now when I saw him in Spain do it, and it was incredible. Then he's made it better and better and better. And now, after 6 years of investing the time and the money for the Fringe and everything, that's what it takes to become a cruise ship magician. That's not on my radar because I don't do stand-up often enough that I'll never be good enough for it. I accept that. I've got no ambition to do it. I'm happy to do little bits at a wedding. But and John Archie said a great thing the other week on a podcast. I think it was Phil Taylor's podcast. He said it's easy to do stand-up at the end of a close-up routine at a wedding example. And it is. He said it would be more going open with the stand-up, and that's when you know if you're getting good at stand-up. And I wouldn't be good enough to do it. You know, I do little bits. You know, I do 25 minutes now at the end of a wedding for 20 or 30 people or 15. It's different to doing a stage show for 1,000 people at a conference. You know, and not my thing. I wouldn't be good at it, so I've got no ambition to do it. And I think sometimes in magic, you've got to know where your own limitations are. We'd all love to be the best magician at every genre of magic. Of course we would. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be Darren Brown. You're not going to be Craig Petty. You're not going to be David Penn. But be good at what you do. You're not going to pickpocket like Lee Thompson or James Brown can.
Well, I mean, for me, I've always just loved doing every single genre. I've always tried to. But I think I'm probably one of the very few people that does kids and close-up. Most close-up magicians hates kid shows. Most kids magicians hate close-up. And
absolutely. And the thing with me is, you've got such a huge staff. It's easy for you, but it's difficult, I think, to be a kids magician and a close-up magician, because if you're going to do Little Billy's party on Saturday for, I don't know what the average figure is, but I don't know, 150 quid, let's say, ballpark figure. I know some are cheaper, some are more. You then can't do a 500 quid wedding.
Yeah.
So yes, you can do a couple of parties on the day, and I get that. And my sister does it reasonably well now. But for me, even if I liked children, which I don't, I was never going to go down that route, because you can't earn the money, I don't think, per gig as a kids magician as you can as a wedding magician.
No.
And there's always people that can, and I accept that, and they'll probably be all down there now going, oh, I get that. But generally, I think it's fair to say your average wedding is going to earn a lot more than your average kids party, even if you do 2 or 3 in it.
Okay.
And the money that we can earn, sometimes you have to pinch yourself. You almost become accustomed to it. But there was a day last year where, by chance, both people, I did 2 weddings and then a sort of half a visit on the way back, and they all paid cash, which is rare. And I got home and I had like £1,200 in, and I'm like, it's mind-blowing money.
Yeah.
One thing, if you get paid cash on a wedding, and a lot of magicians, it's probably fair to say, like cash deals on the day. I think we'll probably leave it at that. If you do get paid when you get there, don't wait. One of the biggest lessons I ever learned, I covered a wedding for Chris Congreve when he lost his voice. I feel like I'm losing mine, a couple of years ago. And I did the mix and mingle. That was great. I went to the bride and groom. She was about to do her speech, so just didn't go away, Magic Boy. And she was really worried about her speech. When I did another table, then unannounced, I just started the speeches. So now I'm like, I haven't been paid, and the groom's got the money. And the speeches were on for 45 minutes. I had a second gig that day for Chris, a professor's house in the middle of nowhere. And I'm now like, I'm going to be late for the second gig. So get the money when you're there. If the best man's got it, By the time he comes to pay you, he's going to be pissed.
Yeah.
And he probably spent it. And there is Asian weddings get paid when you get there if they want to pay cash, because you get messed about. You'll get messed about. The best man, they won't pay. And I had to have a standoff last year at the Park Hall in Wolverhampton. Got to the wedding. I said to the groom, and you know, Asian weddings, you might not even get near the bride and groom on the day, depending on what religion it is and the setup. I said, just say that the guy who's going to pay me, who is it, the best man, let him know I'm going to get paid when I get there. There's no confusion there. And the best man tried to mess me about. I said, mate, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. There's my car over there. I'm going to be in the car. I've got another wedding in 2 hours. I've got 90 minutes to do here. I'll wait for 20 minutes. You either pay me or you don't, mate, but I'm going to go. But I'm going to tell the groom that you didn't pay me and you're going to look a twat. You know, and sometimes you get hard work people. A funny story at a wedding. I did a wedding last summer before, Warwick House in Southern, which I'm sure you're aware. The bride had booked me. One of the few times that I get booked blind, that they hadn't met me. And they were paying cash on the day, which is fine if people want to do it. I get there and the groom, Scottish guy, says, "Can I have a word with you?" I'm like, yeah, of course. He said, "Come with me." I'm thinking, oh, this is great. He's going to pay me straight away. It saves me asking the awkward question. And sometimes there's awkwardness about money. Pulls me into the cloakroom in Warwick House, gets right up quick. Right, listen here, you. And then he called me a really wrong, horrible word that I won't say on there. He said, "I hate magic. I hate magicians. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. She's booked you, not me. Stay away from me." With like absolute venom in his face. And I'm like, and you know the kind of guy I am. I'm lining him up thinking, you're having a right up, sunshine. You really are. I'm going to put you to sleep. But I'm there as a magician at a wedding. I'm like, no problem, mate, no problem. So I'll go and do it. And it was quite apparent on that day, big drinker. A bit of a bully boy, I'd probably be fair to say. And, you know, I probably won't say any more than that. Anyway, it comes to the time. I'm only doing drinks reception outside. Bride and groom trick time. She wants it. She's booked me. So I go up to him. "Can I word you, mate?" Taking the same cloakroom. Put my hand on his chest. I went, "Right, here's what's going to happen. Your bride has just given me 500 quid to do 90 minutes at yours most special day. She wants me here to do the magic. So what's going to happen is you're going to go outside with me now. You're going to take part in the trick. You're going to appear to like the trick. And you're going to go, wow, that's amazing. All right, mate." And I proper told him straight. He went out and actually then he enjoyed it. And I've got a lovely video of him actually giving me a hug going, that was great. But sometimes you get hard work people at weddings and, you know, you always get that one person at that one table. And it's just, you know, that would be rare for me to do that. But I was just mirroring what he'd done to me.
Sometimes you have to. I did a video on the channel recently about how to handle hecklers. And I said, sometimes you just have to step up. You have to put them in their place. You have to make them understand. You just have to.
I have, it's not a formal traffic light system in my head. But, you know, if someone does it once, I'll have a laugh with them, try and get them on side. If they do it twice, I'll maybe make a little bit of a joke. If they do it third time, game on. Absolutely game on. And I'll embarrass them if I have to. And it's rare. And I'll try and do it in a jokey way. And sometimes if you get a really bad table, you just got to walk off. I mean, you're not going to win. They're on their 8th point. You're not going to beat them. So sometimes you have to walk away. And then when you walk away and the next table goes mad, do you come back? I did a wedding at Drayton Manor. You do a lot there. First table, did mix and mingle. This really posh bloke. Choose a card, mate. And he went, "I'd really rather just not, if you don't mind. Just go away." No problem, mate. Walked off the table. The whole table then hated him. They pulled me back. And he looked a twat then because I heard the next table going along, which is fine. It's really weird. Not everyone likes magic. I get that. Weirdos. But not everyone does. And the other thing we cash, by the way, a good tip is count it in front of them, which is awkward, but we've all been underpaid, and say, "I'm going to count it." And the reason is last week I got overpaid and I'd hate for you to overpay me, and do it that way. And it is horrible talking about money and counting it out in front of people, but there's nothing worse than getting in the car. Once you're in the car and you count it and you're 50 quid short, you can't go back. They're going to say, "No, we haven't." So count it in front of them. You know, and sometimes you might get a tip. Does happen. I got a 50 quid tip at my last wedding, which was nice. But yeah, cash is great. I tend to. I have a contract. I mean, talk about contracts if you want. I don't think I would ever enforce a contract, which is probably controversial. I think they're important to have because it looks professional. If a bride cancels me the day before a wedding, am I going to take it to court? No, I'm not. But I do use them. But I normally get paid before the day, and then that way it just solves any issues because you pay.
Trying to get away early.
Absolutely, and if you're doing 2 or 3 in a day, you've got to get away early, and you are looking to get the second half done, and then you're looking at your watch, and you're like, if you got to hang around and wait for money, and then they're doing the speeches, you can't interrupt the speeches. You just can't. No. So yeah, my first ever gig. Funny story. So I'd been doing magic for friends in the pub and whatever, and then someone says, "Can you come and do my uncle's?" It was some distant relative. He rang me up. He was the one. I said, 30 quid. He went, I'll give you 50. Stop for a curry, stop for a drink. So on the day, and it's a real posh area, Four Oaks in Sutton Coldfield, where for people who are not from the Midlands, where the footballers live. Pull up at the house, and you're like, oh God. And then you think, even he's in the crap magician of undercharge, but it's a 21st birthday. So I walk in. I was that nervous. I went to the pub first, and I had 2 pints, which I would never do now. I got a lift there off my then girlfriend. I don't drink when I work. But I'd gone from doing magic in pubs where I was used to being loose, shall we say. Suddenly I'm having to perform sober. It's totally different if you're not used to it. So I went for 2 pints just to settle the nerves. I walk in, they thrust a bottle of Stella in my hand. Oh, the sound. Looked like an alcoholic necking it. Nice to meet you. Everyone, the magician's here, which was the first time I've heard it. And that's almost oh God, yeah, it's me. Go and meet everyone. So I'm like, right, where's birthday boy? And the room stops and looks at me, like silence. And you just think, what's gone on? Birthday boy was dead. He died a few years ago in I think it was a horrible car crash. And what they do, which is very lovely, every year on his birthday, they celebrate his year. So for his 21st, it was a big celebration. But there's me going, where's birthday boy? So do your research on who the booking's for. Absolutely do your research. And another massive lesson for me there, I did my hour. I think I could only come up with an hour's worth of material back then. Got my 50 quid, had my curry. But then they were like, because I knew people there, oh, stop and have a drink. Oh, okay, well, I don't need any encouraging to have a drink and be sociable with people. But of course, sat there drinking, I'm still the magician, and I've done my hour of stuff that I know inside out. Now they're like, well, show us another trick. And I'm like, okay. So I start doing tricks that I don't know so well, and I'm now 4 or 5 pints in, and I mess them up. I did the Virginia Shuffle.
I did it on the channel a couple of weeks.
That trick. I'd only just learnt it then, and I misplaced the cards, and so suddenly 2 aces appear. And what else did I did something else that went wrong, and I'm like, it never happened again. And it was a great lesson. So I never drink when I work. I just don't, because I always have to drive there anyway. But I would never have a pint. I'm one of those people that if I'm going to drink, I'm going to have 10 pints. I don't want 2 pints. I want 10 pints. Yeah, but don't drink when you work. It doesn't look good. And it's amazing. You might have had this yourself. It's amazing how much feedback you get from people who go, I'd have stunk a booze or was slurring a bit. It's bad. You've got to look smart, be professional, and don't drink. Hard way to learn it. But it happened on my first ever gig, so I was thankful for it because
you got it out the way quickly.
I got it out the way, and you've got to die a few, not literally, but you've got to die in your arse a few times to get better. I think part of why I don't want to do stand-up overly is I don't want to go through the process of dying on stage, which is a lonely place in front of 100 people.
There's nothing worse than standing up in front of a couple of 100 people and just you've died on your arse.
It must be awful. So a reason I don't really want to do stand-up, I don't want to go through that process, knowing that you have to die on your arse to get better. And all the top magicians and comedians will say the amount of times they've died on their arse, but it's made them the magician or the comedian that they are. I don't want to go through that process. And it's not that my ego won't take it. It probably would now, but I just don't want to do it. One of my biggest regrets in magic, I didn't do the Paul Daniels Day at his house that he was doing probably a couple of years before he died. I think, I don't know if you did it, I think you could pay, I think it was only 150 quid. And you'd go to his place.
Story. My ex-business partner, Russell, who you know, obviously.
Yeah.
I sent it, I gave it him, I bought a day for him at Paul's house.
Oh, did you?
Oh, birthday. Nice. Yeah. So I didn't go, but he went.
Well, I didn't, because I knew a few people that went, and they said it's an amazing day, and I think it's based on 7 or 8 people, so he's earning, you know, good day's wage. And Debbie McGee would bring you a cup of tea, and it's sat on like, but they said he's very, very honest with you about your routine or your act or whatever. And at the time, I don't think my confidence would have taken Paul Daniels telling me I was shit, even though I knew I was shit, even though I was there to improve. I think the impact that would have had then, I wouldn't care now. I'd love, you know, when David Penn sat an hour with me, loved it. Now, when you mature in magic, you accept criticism, makes you better. Then I think it would have really, really took the wind out of myself. So I didn't do it, but I regret that now, because that would have been what an experience.
Well, you know what, Owen, I got to tell you, this has probably been my favourite interview so far that I've done.
Say that to everyone. I know.
I genuinely don't. You'll never hear it. Go look through. I know you haven't watched all the interviews, but go and watch the ones that I've done. I've never said that before at all, but I mean it. I mean, you are such an interesting guy. You've had so much experience, and you've achieved so much success in a very short time. Bearing in mind, like a decade ago, you weren't even a magician. You didn't even know what magic was. You know, well, you did, but you didn't. You know, to now, 10 years later, being one of the top wedding magicians in the UK, being so well respected, it's, you know, it's inspirational to see how much you can achieve in such a small period of time.
You know, if I ever speak to, it's amazing. You must get it by the hundreds. But it's amazing how many friend requests now I get off magicians. And there's a guy in Australia that messaged me a lot, and I try to give advice. And I always say, look, I'm not saying what I say is right. This is what worked for me. But if there's any young magicians watching, forget about the magic. Get people skills. It's so important. I was lucky. I ran nightclubs in Walsall before I was in the police, and you know what Walsall's like, and you know what Walsall on a night's like. If you can't deal with people after that, you've got no chance. It wasn't the police that made me good with people. It was the nightclub trade. It brought me out myself. And if you're watching this and you're 16, 17, 18, go and get a job at your local pub. It might be a glass collecting job. It might be behind the bar. You will learn more about life and how to deal with people doing that for 6 months. And you'll love it. And you'll pull women doing it if you're 16, 17, 18. You just will. Even I pulled, and I was an ugly thing kid. You know, that's Warsaw for you. You will learn more about people skills in that 6 months than you will learn watching 20 magic DVDs. And I genuinely believe that the people skills is as important with magic as the magic. And we all know magicians who technically are incredible, but they're as dull as dishwater and couldn't even look him in the eye.
I remember wearing a T-shirt to Blackpool a few years ago that everyone hated, but I wore it anyway. And it said magic in big letters, and then underneath it said, because sometimes social ineptitude and masturbation just isn't enough.
But you know what, that's so right. I mean, it is so right. And I understand that a lot of people get into magic to get over their social awkwardness. I didn't. I'd done all my pulling in earlier years. I've got the best girlfriend in the world now, and we've 7 happy years together. She's my rock. But I'd been through that stage, so it was never about that for me. But I just love having a crack with people. You know, a good day for me is going to the pub and just having a good chat with someone. Might be a complete stranger. The Magic Circle last year, I stood at the bar, and people should really, really now apply to the Magic Circle. It's never been better. Oh, it's wonderful. I love being a part of it. I'm the Midlands rep now as well, which is, you have to pinch yourself about that. I stood at the bar, and I must have spoke to Richard Jones, who won Britain's Got Talent. We didn't speak about magic once. We spoke about army and policey stuff, because some of the stuff we do is a bit of a crossover. And I had like an hour and a half chat with him. It was, you know, just incredible. Didn't mention magic once. People skills are everything. You've got it in abundance. You know, the likes of Chris, Gary Lee, they've got it in abundance. It's just as important. And if you're young, if you can get that right, when you start taking magic more seriously, you're already 70% there. Being comfortable with people is everything. That's the biggest bit of advice I can do. Can I quickly mention something I'm doing that might be of interest?
Yes, because we're going to wrap this up in a minute, but I do want you to speak about this because I think this is something that magicians should contact you about. So please go ahead and tell them.
So you'll know this. The process when you become a magician is trying to get things like logos done. And I used to use Fiverr.com a lot. My logo is from Fiverr.com. In the days when it was a Fiverr, I mean, it's not now. So I've bought the software now for to do animated logos, and my page is Express Business Videos, and my Instagram's the same. They're linked to my page. I'm doing logos for businesses. Now, there are some on there that are perfect for magicians. They're not a lot of money. On Fiverr, they're 14 quid. If anyone wants to mention your amazing show, I've got some Christmas ones, which are nice anyway for social media. But if you want to do your own show reels, and there's apps now that you can do it, if you've got a nice video intro, it just makes it look more professional. Have a look at mine. I've over the years, I've had 7 or 8. I've got the software now. I can do it. All I need is a logo, and I did a really nice one yesterday for Tom Mullinger. His sort of logo, and his colours are dark purple. You can change the colours. It comes down with smoke. The 6 or 7.
I saw the one that you did for Chris Congreve as a mentalist.
The mentalist one, isn't that nice? Now, it's not my creativity. It's a template. I bought the software. It cost me a lot of money, but I can do those. If people want, go and visit me. Go and visit the page, Express Business Videos. If people want one, I will do buy one get one free for anyone that mentions your channel. So it might be that you want a Christmas one, and then maybe one for show reels. I'm populating a Dropbox with the ones that I think are more popular. There's a perfect one for magicians where your logo is covered with a like a cloth, and then it disappears off like a reveal. Perfect for magicians. There's some lovely flame ones and smoke ones, and there's about 1,000 of them, and you can't look at them all. But I'm populating the ones that I think are popular for magicians. If you want them, mention this, and they're about £7.50 to £10.
What's the website again? Because I'm going to have it come up at the bottom.
Oh, perfect. Well, look down there. I'll do. I'll buy one get one free if you want one. I've just done one yesterday for a Black Friday sale for a photo booth company. I've done a few for Chris, a few for Tom Mullinger, a few for a finance company. I'm not doing it to make myself a millionaire, because it won't. But it just, when the last lockdown started, I thought, what can I do? Pivot is the big thing. There's something that I can do going on there, and it'll only hopefully get bigger. So if anyone is interested in them, give me a shout.
That's brilliant, mate. That is brilliant. And seriously, when you first set up a business, having a logo and having that animated thing at the beginning, it's so important.
Brand. And branding is important. And I'm not an expert in branding. I use my name, Owen Strickland Magic, but that is now my brand. And the logo that I use, I've had for 4 or 5 years. It's on everything. Where's it gone? I mean, that logo didn't show very well on here, but it didn't cost a lot to do. It looks professional, looks smart. Paul Martin's got a very similar one to that. I think we probably use the same guy. There's ways you can do it cheaply. By all means, go and spend hundreds of pounds with a graphic designer. I mean, I'd be hypocritical to say don't book a cheap magician or someone who's learned 2 tricks, and then say don't use a proper graphic designer. You should, but there are ways of doing a shortcut, and between apps, between things like that, and Fiverr.com is a great resource, albeit nothing's a Fiverr anymore. The logos I'm doing are 14, 15 quid on there, so I'm not undercutting them because I'm happy with I've worked out my prices, and that's what my prices are. But buy one get one free if people want them, and it's just something next year. Now I'm retired from the police. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is going to be a quieter day. Albeit I do a lot of business stuff. And people who are starting their own business get a structure in place. Monday's my socials day and updating the website and doing bits and editing videos from the weekend that I've just done. And you're the busiest magician. And the reason you're the busiest magician in the country is because you're the hardest working magician in the country. There's no luck about that. The two go hand in hand. So more than anyone how much hard work it is running a business. And you're running 2 businesses plus your motivational, and you're doing how many gigs did you do last year between the 3? 6, 7 thousand?
Between all the different companies together, probably about 12,000.
12,000 gigs. So I know and I've been to your office and I've seen your your full-time staff of 4 or 5 people. I've seen your sales boards. I know that that's 100% true, because some people, magicians get jealous of each other, don't they? And I have no doubt there's people going, Owen Strickland don't do 70 weddings a year. Or go and look at my social media, sunshine, it's on there. Craig Petty doesn't do 12,000. I've been to your office. Yes, you do. I've seen your sales figures. You showed me what you had to refund this year, and I won't mention the figure, but it would give people a heart attack. I mean, it really would. But you've worked hard. I think I've worked hard. My business skills are better than my magic skills. You know, I won the Wedding Industry Awards. I don't say I don't class them as a magic award. I class them as a business award. And they did amazing for me. They've got their haters. The first year I won that, from their directory, I got 10 weddings. So I got £6,000 worth of bookings for £75 return on investment. But people saying you shouldn't pay. What are you paying for? They're going to spend 80 quid on a trick that goes in the bottom drawer, but they won't spend £75 on a business investment that then gets you nationally known as decent in your field. And I've won that a few times, you know. Don't like to talk about that. But, you know, return on investment is everything. And over time, you know this, you learn what works for you and what doesn't. Magazines don't work for me. Advertising in magazines has never worked. I've never earned a gig from it. And I'm sure, like you, I track where every gig comes from. I ask people, yeah, it's easy at a wedding fair, I'll make a note of it, but if they book me online, where have you seen me? I saw your last advert. You could do a whole show on Facebook adverts and the pros and cons. I have mixed success with them. The thing I found with Facebook adverts, I don't know about you, the last sort of 18 months, it seems to almost attract the more budget brides. Yeah. And the amount of times you get that message come through where it just says prices, please, you know they can't afford you, and you just know that. This is why now on my Facebook ads, I'll put the price, because that way they know what the price is. I think be upfront about your prices. It's amazing, you know, how many people. My last wedding fair, Asta Marina, only a few weeks ago, she said, we spoke to a magician. I won't say who his name is. We asked him 3 times for his price via email, and he wouldn't give us a price. We just gave up. So for me, I'm like, here's my price. And the reason as well is, if you, in my email with my price list, they know the price. If they get back in contact, then they're interested in booking. If I don't put the price on there, they're like, how much is the money? I might have wasted 2 or 3 emails, but when they realise the top package is 700 quid, oh, it's too much, can't afford it, which is fine. So I'm very transparent about my prices. You know, and I think that's important, because you will separate the wheat from the chaff. A shout out, if people are going to do Facebook adverts, Chris Piercy does a really, really good a course. There's not a lot of money.
He does anymore?
Does he not do it anymore?
No, the wedding, the thing that he did with Jack.
Oh no, not that. He does a Facebook adverts course that you pay for.
Oh right, okay, I didn't know that. Right,
it's delivered into your inbox, and it's a video, and it goes through everything about whittling down your target audience. You know, because you must see a lot of magician adverts like I do, and I'm thinking, you're not advertising this to the right people, because there's nothing that you would have ticked that I should be seeing. You should be targeting people who got engaged this year in a certain age and all that. He goes for that brilliantly. It's well worth an investment. So yeah, but magazines don't work for me. Wedding fairs work for me. Facebook adverts, hit and miss. They have worked, but sometimes they don't. And there's no magic wand, no pun intended, of what's going to work for everyone that's going to do this as a business. You have to try things, and sometimes it's going to cost you a bit of money. I stupidly last year got talked into Yale.com. The guy rang me, very good salesman, and I'm difficult to sell to. And he remotely looked on the website, said, we can fix this, blah, blah, blah. Biggest waste of money ever. Probably spent 600 quid in that year on Yale. Why are people going to use Yale? They've got Google. Google ads I don't do. You'll be an expert on that. I'm not. I know they work brilliant. Damien Sir, I know, smashes it with Google and gets all his bookings from Google and doesn't do wedding fairs. That worked for him brilliantly, and he earns top money. What works for me, what not work for you, what works for him, what not work for them. You know, you've got to find your own path, and sometimes it's trial and error about what will work for you that won't work for someone else. You know, there's no easy answer. The only answer is you've got to work hard, and there is no, and that's whatever industry you're in. You know, the hard work pays off. It really does. You're the most successful magician in the country because you work the hardest. Go figure.
Yeah.
That or your looks, it's one of the two. I can never decide.
I don't think it's that, mate. I don't think it's that. But no, you're right. I mean, I think that, and we're going to wrap this whole thing up now, but I think that if you do anything, you either have to go big or go home.
I think so.
Don't play at it. You know, I was interviewing D. Christopher for this channel, and he said, I'm watching your channel. I'm loving your channel. I can't believe you're uploading 14 videos a week. He's like, when are you finding time to do 14 videos a week? He's like, I used to do YouTube and I was struggling to do one a week. And I'm like, well, it's the simple thing of, if I'm going to commit myself to do something, I have to put 100% in. What's the point in dicking around with it and then looking back 6 months' time going, well, that didn't work. Well, of course it didn't.
Why didn't that work? Exactly. And I'm enjoying your stuff. I can't keep up with all of it, but I enjoy the review show. And Ryland's going to be a star. And you said something the other day, actually, and to sort of reinforce the point I was talking about, people skills. You said he's now having acting lessons. That will be better for him than the next 10 magic tricks he buys, because
he has now weekly acting lessons, weekly vocal projection lessons, because that's important. You know, it's important.
And why I struggle with stand-up, or would struggle, because I know the delivery is so different to close-up, to do with the scripting and whatever. I went to Tom Mullinger's show a couple of weeks ago in Stratford. He did an absolute brilliant show, small, intimate, 16 people, absolutely nailed it. And what was nice with that show, I came out like I knew everyone at that show, because he involved everyone at the show. So he got the audience participation. Forget the effects that were all great. He got the audience participation absolutely nailed on. And that doesn't come, that he's worked at that. So it's projection. If people listen to a DJ, if anyone knows a DJ, speak to a DJ in real life and then go and listen to them when they're in the nearest nightclub, and when they speak, it's almost like two different people. They become a character, and I understand that. And that's why I don't do stand-up. You do it very well. You've got to work hard, and you've got to, and Ryland, because of the acting and voice projection, he will smash it on stage now. He will smash it. And he won't get, what's the word? He won't get scared on stage, because he'll be used to doing it.
The thing that Ryland's got is he's been basically around performers his whole life. Ever since he was born, he just sees magicians and performers. So for him, going up on stage isn't a scary thing.
Because Dad does it, and
everybody else does it. Everybody who he knows and every adult he sees goes on stage. So to him, it's kind of like why would I be nervous doing this? Everyone does it. So
and it all doing good. So people skills, I can't reinforce it enough, and things like that. It's as important, if not more, than
absolutely.
So
Owen, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I'm going to put your deets down below. Make sure you hit Owen up if you're and if you're serious about wanting to grow a brand, you need to make sure that you've got that video introduction. It's really important. Please speak to Owen. And seriously, man, thank you for finding the time to come on the channel. I know you're a busy guy. You continue to be busy all through lockdown, and I really appreciate you coming out. And
welcome, mate. And if anyone wants to ask me something, feel free to ask me. I don't profess to know all the answers. I'll just tell you what's worked for me, and that might not be good for you, but I'll tell you that's what worked for me. There's some brilliant magicians. I know you said I'm one of the hidden ones. There are so many hidden great magicians up and down the country that people perhaps don't know, and like Christian Fletcher around here, and we got Sam Fitton, Mark Waddington up north. If I think of areas, Luke Howells in the northeast, I think of Ricky Lock in East Midlands. You think of the people I know from around the country who are known as the wedding magicians. Lee Smith down south, Grant Maidment in Bath. There's people up and down the country that for me stand out as the wedding experts, if you like. And they are there, and speak to them and ask them, because magicians, the good magicians, are nice people and they'll help you. Gary Jones is the kindest, nicest man. I learned so much from him and Chris. But and the big thing with Gary is, I'm going to sound like a fanboy again, he will treat every magician like an equal.
Yeah,
he will speak to them like they could have learned their first ever magic trick, and he will speak to them, and he did with me, like I was as good as him, and I'll never be as good as him, but he treated me like I was. And that's rare in magic, because the egos and the people involved that look down the nose. And you know what? Maybe sometimes I'm guilty of looking down my nose at people, and I shouldn't. But if people ask me for help, I'm happy to tell them. There's no big hidden secret going on. There's some books out there. I think Sam and Mark Waddington done books. Read them; they're brilliant. Wayne Goodman did a brilliant restaurant one, or whatever. There's gold resources out there. There's some really good podcasts now. This is a brilliant channel, and these interviews are useful. Phil Taylor's Magicians Advice podcast is some absolute gold. And I know you've been on there. There is resources out there. It's just taking the time to listen to it. I listen to stuff in the car. That's when I listen. I even do review shows in the car because I don't need to see what the trick is. I need to hear. So I used to watch the Wizard product review on a Wednesday on the way back from work on an hour's drive. Not that I was watching it, but I listened to it because I hear the feedback there. Your DVDs, your YouTube, I can listen to. If you're in the car, and particularly when you're going to and from gigs, you've probably got 2.5 hours driving that day. Listen to something business. Listen to a YouTube video on how to maximize your SEO. One of the easy ones, because it's a complicated science, and I'm no expert, but there's stuff out there just finding it. You should perhaps do a course one day on marketing. You know, imagine the amount of magicians you would have that would come. You know, marketing made easy for magicians.
It's something that people are asking me about. Maybe one day.
People will do it, but and you'll know this. There's a difference between people saying they're going to do something, where every magician says they'll do it, and then magicians that go and do it. And actually, you're an example. You did a brilliant talk a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember. It was at the what's the small theatre off Broad Street? Not the Alex.
Yeah, another one you mean. Can't remember the name of it.
You did, and you mentioned it on a magician's page. You were going to do a talk, and you did a half-an-hour talk on digital marketing. And I can't remember how many people said they were going to come. And you know, on the night there was me there, and there was Alex Foden, who I think was your driver. Magicians say they're going to do stuff, but then when it comes to it, they don't want to do it. The difference is the people who do well are the people who will go and do things like that.
Yeah.
And you know, you've got to put the work in. But when it's all a free resource like that, there is no excuse not to do it. No. You've got to balance it. I'm not saying listen to YouTube 14 hours a day, and the reason I'm behind on some of your shows is because I don't want to spend too much on my phone. I've got other stuff to do, but when you get that time, watch something, and things like this are gold, and podcasts.
And it's what I'm doing right now. You know, I'm immersing myself in YouTube. I don't really know, or I didn't know much about YouTube before I started this channel, and you know, I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm signing up for courses every day. I'm learning more, and I think you've got to do that if you're going to do something.
It's such an important resource, and it gets a bad rap on some magicians, rightly so, that some people reveal tricks and expose tricks, and that is bad. I can't lie. I learned how to shuffle, false cut. I learned off YouTube, but it's not even for magic. For business, my mum's just had a Mac, can't use it, rings me up every time. I said, Mum, if you Google it or put it into YouTube, you'll get a video right there how to do it. Everything is on YouTube on how to do it. Use it. It's such an important resource. And this channel will grow and grow and grow now. And you know, how many hits you getting now?
I think we're doing like 6,000 or 7,000 hours of watch time a month.
Well, there you go. And most of that's going to be gold. And then my bit. But yeah, poor people will be, if they're watching this at night, they'll send them to sleep.
No, mate, no. This has been an amazing interview. Really, really.
Well, I hope it's useful, and you know, people can learn from our mistakes. You know, it's a shortcut. Don't do this. Don't do that. Do this. Do that. Stops you 18 months of pain. You know.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I enjoyed it, mate.
Owen, you've been amazing. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you for having me. And now a few more people might have heard of Owen Strickland.
Absolutely.
I still think people have been going, who's you imagine Sean Farquhar, Steve Della, David Roth, Owen.
but you know, people do need to know about you because you're going out and you're doing, and that's the point. And Owen, if you've got any questions for him, put it in the comments down below. He's on YouTube. He will hopefully watch this and he'll answer you. And you know, just make sure that you take action, like Owen said. And one way that you can take action, and here's my link, is you can subscribe to this channel. There you go. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're back every single day, 14 videos a week. Tomorrow is Wednesday, which is the review show with me and Ryan. Yeah, absolutely. Thursday is the Thursday is the magic stuff, and then Friday we've got a rant. So check that out. And yeah, thanks very much for watching. And one more time, Owen, you were amazing. Thanks very much.
Thanks all. 70s thumbs up. I love that. I'm a 70s kid. So thanks for having me. Bye-bye.